What if the symbol of hope got beaten to death with a crowbar and came back pissed? No plot armor, no crying, just unfiltered violence and a body count that would make Batman retire. This is What If Deku was Red Hood, and nobody's ready for this smoke. Let's fucking go.
Welcome, legends, to Chronos Recom. I wrote this story myself, so if you have any suggestions or what-ifs you want to see, drop it in the comments below. Also, just wanted to let you know I've got a Patreon set up now for anyone who wants to support the channel directly. You can get early access to stories, submit direct fan requests, and get exclusive content. It's totally optional, but if you want to help keep these stories coming, check it out. Links in the description. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that bell so you never miss an upload. Let's dive into this story.
The crowbar came down again. Crack. Izuku's ribs shattered. He couldn't scream anymore. His vocal cords were raw, throat bleeding from 3 days of screaming. All he could do was wheeze, blood bubbling from his lips as his head lolled forward. "Tell me, Midoriya," All for One said, his voice a calm contrast to the savage brutality of his actions. He wore a white suit, pristine except for the splatter of red across his chest. The crowbar dripped. "Where's your smiling hero now?" Izuku tried to speak. His jaw was broken. The words came out as a wet gurgle. "He's coming." All for One laughed. It was a sound like grinding glass echoing through the warehouse. "Is he? Is he really?" He walked to a laptop set up on a crate. The screen showed a live feed of Musutafu. Buildings burned. Civilians screamed. All Might was there, massive and powerful, throwing Nomus into the stratosphere. "He's very busy, you see, saving the city, being the symbol of peace." The encrypted audio feed was still broadcasting. All Might could hear everything. Every hit, every scream, every time the crowbar connected with flesh and bone. "But not you?" All for One continued, turning back to the green-haired boy tied to the chair. Blood pooled beneath the metal legs. Izuku's fingers were broken, bent at impossible angles. His hero notebook lay in the corner, pages torn out and burned. "He chose them over you, the many over the one. Very heroic, wouldn't you say?" Crack! The crowbar hit Izuku's shoulder, the joint dislocated with a wet pop. "Young Midoriya!" All Might's voice cracked through the laptop speaker, desperate and broken. "Hang on, I'm coming!" "Are you?" All for One asked the screen. He checked his watch. "You've been saying that for 72 hours. How many Nomus do I need to deploy before you admit the truth?" He leaned close to Izuku's ear. "He can't save you. He can only save the idea of society. And you? You're just one boy, expendable." Izuku's green eyes, swollen and bloody, stared at the laptop, at All Might's tiny figure on the screen so far away, so impossibly far. "Hope is a lie, young Midoriya," All for One whispered, "and you're about to learn that lesson permanently." He pressed a button on his phone. Throughout the warehouse, C4 charges beeped to life. "No!" All Might's scream echoed through the audio feed. All for One walked toward the exit. He paused at the door. "You had such potential, such determination, but determination without power is just a pretty corpse." He smiled. "Goodbye, Ninth Successor." The door slammed shut. Izuku sat alone in the dark. The beeping grew faster, faster. He couldn't move, couldn't think. His mind was breaking apart, fractured by 3 days of unending pain. All Might wasn't coming. All Might had chosen the city. All Might had let him die. The beeping stopped. Izuku closed his eyes. Boom! The warehouse exploded in a fireball that lit up the night sky. Metal and concrete rained down for blocks. Emergency services would find nothing but ash and twisted steel. No body. No evidence. No proof that a 15-year-old boy had ever been there. All Might arrived 6 minutes later. He fell to his knees in the rubble and screamed. But Dr. Garaki was already gone, a black body bag slung over his shoulder, driving away in an unmarked van. Inside the bag, Izuku Midoriya's broken corpse leaked blood onto the floor. "Such a waste," Garaki muttered, adjusting his glasses. But the master's orders were clear. Retrieve the body. The experiment must continue. The lab was cold, sterile, hidden beneath layers of abandoned subway tunnels in the industrial district. Garaki whistled as he worked, unzipping the body bag with clinical efficiency. Izuku's corpse was a mess. Burns covered 60% of his body. Compound fractures jutted through skin. His face was barely recognizable, swollen and purple, but the important parts were intact. The brain, the spine, the nervous system. Perfect, Garaki said, making notes on his clipboard. Now, let's see if the synthetic Lazarus pit actually works. The vat dominated the center of the lab. 10 feet tall, 15 feet wide, filled with glowing green liquid that bubbled and hissed. Tubes and wires connected it to machines that hummed with power. Garaki had spent 5 years developing this formula, combining quirk-enhancing drugs, regenerative compounds, and something else. Something he'd extracted from a meteor fragment that All for One had recovered decades ago. Something that shouldn't exist on Earth. He pressed a button. Mechanical arms lifted Izuku's body from the table. Slowly, carefully, they lowered him into the vat. The green liquid swallowed him whole. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the machine screamed. Alarms blared. The liquid began to boil, bubbling violently as Izuku's body convulsed. His eyes snapped open, glowing bright green in the darkness of the fluid. His mouth opened in a silent scream. His heart started beating. "Impossible," Garaki whispered, watching the monitors. "His vitals are spiking. Brain activity is through the roof. Muscle density is increasing. Bone structure reinforcing. This isn't just resurrection. This is enhancement." Izuku's body jerked. His spine arched. The Lazarus liquid burned through him, rewriting his DNA, flooding his cells with impossible energy. Every broken bone knitted back together, stronger than before. Every torn muscle regrew, denser and more powerful. His quirk factor, dormant and useless before, suddenly activated, fusing with the Lazarus energy to create something new. Something deadly. The vat exploded. Green liquid flooded the lab. Izuku rose from the wreckage, steam pouring off his naked body. His hair was still green, but now a stark white streak ran through it, starting at his temple and cutting through the curls. His eyes glowed with that same terrible green light. His skin was unmarked, perfect, all the burns and scars erased as if they'd never existed. But his mind was fractured. "Young man, please calm down," Garaki said, raising his hands. "You've been through a traumatic experience, but you're safe now. The pain is over." Izuku looked at him. His expression was blank, empty. Then something flickered behind those green eyes. Recognition, memory, rage. "You," Izuku said. His voice was different, deeper, colder. "You were there, at the warehouse. I saw you." "I saved your life," Garaki said quickly, backing away. "All for One wanted you dead, but I rescued you. I brought you back. You work for him. I had no choice." Izuku moved. 1 second he was standing 10 feet away. The next he was in front of Garaki, hand wrapped around the doctor's throat. Garaki gasped, clawing at Izuku's arm. The boy's grip was iron, superhuman. "Please," Garaki wheezed. "I was just following orders." Izuku's other hand came up. He placed his palm flat against Garaki's chest. "Following orders," he repeated. "That's what they all say." He pushed. Garaki flew backward, crashing through a computer console. Sparks erupted. The doctor screamed, electricity arcing through his body. 2 lab assistants rushed in through the side door, shouting. One had a quirk that made his hands glow red. The other was reaching for a tranquilizer gun. Izuku turned. His body moved on instinct, muscle memory from 10 months of training with All Might, combined with something new, something primal. The Lazarus pit had burned away his inhibitions, his fear, his mercy. What remained was pure, distilled violence. He caught the first assistant's wrist, twisted, and felt the bones snap. The man screamed. Izuku slammed his elbow into the man's face, shattering his nose. The second assistant fired the tranquilizer. Izuku moved his head slightly. The dart whistled past his ear and embedded in the wall. "Too slow," Izuku said. He grabbed a scalpel from the surgical tray and threw it. The blade buried itself in the second assistant's shoulder. The man dropped the gun, clutching the wound. Izuku was already moving, crossing the distance in 2 strides. He grabbed the man's head and slammed it into the corner of a metal table. Once, twice, 3 times. The assistant stopped moving. Izuku stood in the center of the lab, breathing heavily. Bodies littered the floor. Garaki was still alive, barely, whimpering against the sparking console. The green glow in Izuku's eyes had faded, replaced by his natural green. But something was different now. The innocence was gone. The hope was dead. "All Might," Izuku whispered. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. "You left me. You let me die." He looked down at his hands. They were steady now, strong, powerful. He could feel the strength coursing through his muscles, the enhanced speed and reflexes. The Lazarus pit had given him what he'd always wanted, power. But at what cost? He found clothes in a storage locker, black tactical pants, a dark green shirt, steel-toed boots. He dressed quickly, then searched the lab. Garaki had equipment everywhere. Weapons, tech files on All for One's operations. And in the corner, a prototype helmet. Red, metallic, with a built-in voice modulator and targeting system. Izuku picked it up. The metal was cold against his palms. Red Hood, he read from the file attached to the helmet. Prototype anti-villain armor. Bulletproof. Voice distortion. Thermal imaging. Target acquisition. He looked at his reflection in the polished surface. Perfect. He put it on. The helmet sealed with a hiss. The interior lit up with a heads-up display. The world became data, threat assessments, structural weaknesses, escape routes. All for one, Izuku said, his voice now a modulated gruff of the helmet speakers. You wanted to break me, to prove that heroes are a lie. He checked the pistols he'd found in the weapons locker. Modified. High caliber, illegal in 17 countries. You succeeded. He walked to the lab exit. Behind him, Garaki coughed blood and tried to crawl away. Izuku didn't look back. He had work to do. People to kill. A society to burn. But I'm not the victim anymore, he said to the empty tunnel. I'm the monster you created. He vanished into the darkness. 2 years passed. Mustafa had changed. The hero society was still strong. All Might still symbol of peace. But something new had emerged in the shadows. A rumor. A ghost story. A name whispered in fear by villains and criminals, Red Hood. He appeared without warning. A warehouse full of human traffickers would be found dead, each with a single bullet wound. A quirk supremacist gang would vanish overnight, their hideout burned to ash. Drug dealers started turning themselves into police, babbling about a demon in a red helmet who gave them a choice. Stop or die. The heroes didn't know what to make of him. He killed criminals. That made him a villain by law. But he also stopped crime, saved civilians, and took down villain operations that had been running for years. He existed in a gray space, too brutal for heroism, too effective to ignore. And tonight, he was about to make his presence impossible to ignore. The meeting was in an abandoned factory in the industrial district. 12 of Musutafu's biggest drug dealers gathered to discuss territory and profit. They dealt Trigger, the quirk enhancement drug that was flooding the streets. Teenagers were overdosing. Heroes were struggling to keep up with trigger-enhanced criminals. And these men were getting rich from the chaos. The leader was a man called Viper. He had a serpent quirk, scales covering his arms, fangs dripping venom. He sat at the head of the table, counting stacks of cash. Gentlemen, he said, grinning, this quarter's profits are up 40%. The high schools are our biggest market. Kids want power, and we're selling it to them. The others laughed, clinked glasses, celebrated. The skylight shattered. Glass rained down. The dealers shouted, jumping back. 3 bodyguards rushed forward, quirks activating. One had stone skin. Another could shoot fire. The third had enhanced speed. Red Hood dropped through the broken skylight. He fired before he hit the ground. Bang! 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 3 shots. 3 headshots. The bodyguards dropped, dead before they knew they were dead. Izuku landed in a crouch, the impact cratering the concrete floor. He rose slowly, dual pistols aimed at the dealers. Evening, gentlemen, he said, his voice distorted and cold through the helmet. We need to talk about your business model. Viper slammed his hands on the table. You're the Red Hood. Do you have any idea who you're messing with? Yes, Izuku said. He reached behind him and pulled a large duffel bag off his back. He threw it onto the table. It landed with a wet thud. I know exactly who I'm messing with. One of the dealers opened the bag. His face went white. He stumbled back, retching. Inside were heads, 12 of them, the lieutenants and enforcers who'd been running the Trigger distribution network. You're losing focus, Izuku said, walking around the table. His boots crunched on broken glass. You're selling to kids, teenagers, people who don't understand what they're taking. That's a violation of my rules. Your rules? Vipers, this is our city. We've been running this operation for 3 years. Not anymore. Viper's quirk activated. His body shifted, muscles bulging, scales spreading across his skin. He lunged across the table, fangs extended, venom dripping. Fast. Deadly. Izuku didn't move. Viper's fangs were inches from his helmet when Izuku's hand snapped up. He caught Viper by the throat mid-lunge, stopping his momentum completely. The dealer's eyes went wide. Izuku's grip tightened. Superhuman strength, Izuku said conversationally. One of the perks of being resurrected in a chemical vat. He slammed Viper face first into the table. The wood splintered. Viper's jaw shattered. From now on, you work for me. You sell what I say when I say where I say. No kids, no schools, no residential areas. He pulled Viper up by his hair. The man's face was a bloody mess. You'll operate in the industrial zones, adults only, and 30% of your profits go to rehabilitation centers for trigger addicts. Understood? Viper gurgled something that might have been agreement. Good. Izuku dropped him. He turned to the other dealers. Same offer for all of you. Work for me, follow my rules, and you live. Cross me, and you end up in the bag. Who's in? Every hand went up. Smart. Izuku pulled a device from his belt and placed it on the table. This contains a list of my rules, distribution zones, and profit-sharing structure. You have 48 hours to get in line. After that, I start making examples. He walked toward the door. Behind him, one dealer found his courage. He pulled a gun from his jacket, aimed at Izuku's back. You can't just come in here and... Bang, Izuku had spun and fired without looking. The bullet caught the dealer between the eyes. He dropped, gun clattering from his dead hand. Izuku holstered his pistol. Any other questions? Silence. Didn't think so. He kicked the door open and stepped out into the alley. The factory exploded behind him, flames erupting from the windows. He'd planted incendiaries while he was talking, covering evidence, sending a message. The dealers would escape through the side exits, but they'd remember. They'd tell others. Red Hood was real. Red Hood was in charge, and Red Hood did not tolerate disobedience. You know, a voice said from above, most people introduce themselves before they start a protection racket. Izuku looked up. A woman stood on the fire escape, silhouetted against the moon. She was tall, athletic, with long white hair tied back in a ponytail, brown skin, red eyes that gleamed with predatory interest, and rabbit ears on her head, but twitching as she watched him. Mirko, the rabbit hero, number 5 in the hero rankings. You watched the whole thing, Izuku said, not a question. I did. Mirko jumped down, landing in a crouch that cracked the pavement. She straightened, grinning. You're fast, strong, brutal. I like that in a man. You're supposed to arrest me. Am I? Mirko walked closer, circling him like a predator assessing prey. You just took down a drug operation that's been evading heroes for 3 years. You're doing our job. Sure, you're using illegal methods, but results are results. I killed 3 people. 3 scumbags who were selling poison to children. Mirko stopped in front of him, hands on her hips. I'm not going to cry over them. Are you? Izuku tilted his head, studying her through the helmet's targeting system. Heart rate elevated, adrenaline spiking, but not from fear, from excitement. You're different from other heroes. I'm the best hero, Mirko corrected, and I don't play by the same rules as those uptight bastards. I hunt villains. I break bones. I make criminals fear me. Her grin widened. Sounds like we have a lot in common. Is this the part where you try to recruit me? Nah. Mirko reached out and tapped his helmet. This is the part where I ask you out. Coffee. Tomorrow. Noon. There's a place in the entertainment district. Good coffee. Better view of the street. We can talk about your little war on crime. Izuku laughed. It was a harsh sound through the modulator. You want to date a killer? I want to date someone who's not afraid to do what's necessary. Mirko's red eyes gleamed. I'm tired of weak heroes who hesitate, who let villains escape because they're worried about property damage or public opinion. You get shit done. That's hot. You're insane, and you're a crime lord with a moral code. Mirko turned away, waving over her shoulder. Noon tomorrow. Don't be late, Rabbit. She kicked off, her powerful legs launching her onto a rooftop in a single bound. She vanished into the night, leaving Izuku alone in the alley with a burning building at his back. He should have said no, should have disappeared, should have kept his distance from heroes. But Mirko wasn't like other heroes. And if he was being honest, he wasn't like other vigilantes. Noon, he muttered. Why not? The coffee shop was exactly where Mirko said it would be. Small, quiet, with outdoor seating that gave a clear view of 3 major intersections. Izuku sat at a corner table, helmet off, wearing a black hoodie with the hood up. The white streak in his hair was visible, but most people assumed it was a fashion choice. Mirko arrived exactly at noon. She wore civilian clothes, ripped jeans, a white tank top, and a leather jacket. But there was no hiding her athletic build or the predatory grace in her movements. She spotted him immediately and slid into the seat across from him. There he is, she said, grinning. The mysterious Red Hood. Without the helmet, you look almost normal. Disappointed? Hell no, you're cute, she signaled the waiter. 2 coffees, black, strong. They sat in silence while the waiter brought their drinks. Izuku watched the street, tracking pedestrians, vehicles, potential threats, old habits. Mirko watched him, studying his face. You've got scars, she said finally. Not on your skin, in your eyes. Everyone has scars. Not like yours. Mirko leaned forward. I've seen a lot of violence, fought a lot of battles, but the look in your eyes, that's not just combat trauma, that's something deeper, personal. Izuku took a sip of coffee. It was good, strong, bitter. You're perceptive. I'm a hero. It's my job. Mirko's expression softened slightly. You don't have to tell me your origin story. I'm not going to psychoanalyze you or try to fix you. I just want to know if you're committed to this path. What path? The brutal one. The one where you make criminals fear the night. Where you do what soft heroes won't. Mirko's red eyes locked onto his green ones. Because if you're committed, then we can work together, hunt together, be partners. Partners in what? In making this city safer by making it more dangerous for the bad guys. Mirko grinned, showing teeth. You control the underworld. I patrol the streets. Together we cover more ground, stop more crime, save more people. You want to cross the line with me. I want to erase the line. Mirko reached across the table and grabbed his hand. Her grip was strong, calloused from years of combat. I've been doing this alone for too long, fighting within rules that protect villains more than victims. You're willing to do what's necessary. That's what I need. Izuku looked down at their joined hands. Her skin was warm, alive, so different from the cold metal of his guns or the sterile walls of Garaki's lab. For 2 years, he'd been alone, driven by rage and memory. But sitting here with this fierce, brutal, honest woman, he felt something he thought had died in that warehouse. Connection. You're serious about this, he said. Dead serious. Mirko squeezed his hand. So what do you say, Red Hood? Want to partner up with the rabbit hero? Izuku smiled. It was small, scarred by pain, but genuine. Call me Izuku. And yeah, let's hunt together. Their partnership was immediate and brutal. That same night, they hit a villain hideout together. Mirko kicked down the door while Izuku provided covering fire. She moved like a hurricane, her powerful legs shattering bones and denting walls. He moved like a ghost, bullets finding targets with perfect precision. Together, they were unstoppable. The villains didn't stand a chance. This is amazing. Mirko shouted over the chaos, launching a thug through a window. Why didn't I do this sooner? Because you're supposed to be a hero, Izuku said, shooting out a villain's kneecap. The man dropped, screaming, not an enforcer. Semantics. Mirko roundhouse kicked another villain in the head. He went down hard and didn't get up. Besides, I'm still saving people, just with more broken bones. They cleared the hideout in under 3 minutes. 15 villains subdued, 3 dead. The rest would need serious medical attention. Mirko stood in the center of the room, breathing hard, blood splattered across her tank top. She looked at Izuku, eyes wild with adrenaline. That was the best fight I've had in years, she said. It was efficient, Izuku agreed, reloading his pistols. Efficient, it was incredible. Mirko crossed the room in 2 strides and grabbed him by the collar. You're incredible. Then she kissed him. It was fierce, aggressive, tasting of blood and adrenaline and something electric. Izuku's hands came up instinctively, gripping her waist. She was all muscle and heat, pressing against him with the same intensity she brought to combat. When they broke apart, both were breathing heavily. That was... Izuku started. Yeah, Mirko agreed, grinning. It was. They kissed again, harder this time, surrounded by unconscious criminals and the wreckage of violence. It was insane. Inappropriate. Perfect. Their romance was built on mutual lethality. They hunted together 3 nights a week, targeting the worst villains in Musutafu. They pushed each other to be faster, stronger, more brutal. Mirko taught Izuku hand-to-hand combat techniques that complemented his enhanced strength. Izuku taught Mirko tactical planning and weapons training. Together, they were a force of nature, but they were also tender with each other. After hunts, they'd sit on rooftops and watch the sunrise. Mirko would lean against his shoulder, her usual aggression softened by exhaustion. Izuku would run his fingers through her hair, the white streak in his own hair reflecting the dawn light. Do you ever regret it? Mirko asked one morning, 3 months into their partnership. Crossing the line? No, Izuku said simply. I regret trusting heroes to do what was necessary. I regret believing in the system, but killing villains who deserve it? No regrets. Good. Mirko tilted her head to look at him. Because I don't regret this. Us. Any of it. Neither do I. They kissed as the sun rose over Musutafu, two lethal protectors watching over a city that didn't know whether to fear them or thank them. 6 months into Izuku's operation as Red Hood, a new threat emerged. The Shi Hasaikai, a Yakuza organization led by a germaphobe named Overhaul. They'd been quiet for years, operating in the shadows, but now they were expanding, moving into Red Hood's territory, selling a new drug that erased quirks permanently. That alone would have put them on Izuku's radar. But then the reports started coming in. A little girl, white hair, red eyes, seen with Overhaul on multiple occasions, covered in bandages, always silent, always afraid. Izuku knew that look, that silence, that fear. He'd worn it himself in that warehouse. We need to move on the Hasaikai, Izuku said, spreading a map across the war room table. He'd taken over an abandoned office building, converting the top floor into a base of operations. Screens showed feeds from cameras across the city. They're experimenting on a child. Mirko's expression went cold. You're sure? I'm sure. Izuku pulled up surveillance photos. Her name is Eri, 6 years old. Overhaul claims she's his daughter, but the Heroes Public Safety Commission has no records of him having a family. She's a prisoner. Then we get her out. It won't be easy. The Hasaikai compound is a fortress. Guards everywhere, multiple layers of security, and Overhaul himself is dangerous. His quirk lets him disassemble and reassemble matter at a molecular level. One touch and you're dust. So we don't let him touch us. Mirko cracked her knuckles. When do we move? Tonight. But Mirko. Izuku looked at her, his expression serious. This one's personal for me. I need to do this. I know. Mirko walked around the table and placed her hand on his cheek. But you're not alone anymore. We do this together. Izuku leaned into her touch. Together. The Shiai Hasaikai compound was in the industrial district, hidden behind a legitimate cleaning supplies company. Izuku and Mirko approached at midnight, moving through shadows. Mirko handled perimeter security, her powerful kicks rendering guards unconscious before they could sound alarms. Izuku hacked the electronic locks, bypassing security systems with equipment he'd stolen from hero agencies. They entered through a side entrance, descending into underground levels that didn't exist on any official blueprints. The compound was a maze of corridors and chambers. They moved silently, efficiently, taking down guards with brutal precision. Then they hit the first major obstacle, Rappa. He was massive, over 7 feet tall, pure muscle wrapped in traditional Yakuza tattoos. His quirk was simple, enhanced strength and durability focused in his arms. He loved to fight, lived for it. And he stood between them and Eri's location. Finally, Rappa shouted, grinning wildly. Someone worth fighting! Come on, show me what you've got! He charged, fists swinging like wrecking balls. The corridor exploded with impacts as his punches cratered walls. Mirko dodged left, Izuku right. They flanked him, attacking from both sides. Mirko's kick connected with his ribs. The impact would have shattered a normal person's bones. Rappa laughed and swung at her. She backflipped away, landing in a crouch. Tough bastard, she muttered. Very tough, Izuku agreed. He holstered his pistols. Guns wouldn't work here. Rappa was too durable. This required a different approach. Izuku activated his Lazarus-enhanced strength. He felt the power surge through his muscles, that green energy that had resurrected him now fueling his movements. He rushed forward, ducking under Rappa's haymaker. He drove his fist into Rappa's stomach. The impact sent shockwaves through the corridor. Rappa's eyes went wide. He stumbled back, wheezing. You're strong, Rappa laughed, delighted. This is what I've been waiting for. Come on, more. They traded blows, fist against fist. Rappa's enhanced arms versus Izuku's Lazarus strength. The corridor became a war zone, walls cracking, ceiling tiles falling. Mirko stayed back, looking for openings. When Rappa overextended on a punch, she darted in and kicked his knee. Cartilage crunched, Rappa roared, swinging wildly. Izuku caught his fist, actually caught it, stopping the momentum with his bare hands. Rappa stared in disbelief. You like to hit? Izuku said, his voice cold. I like to shoot. He pulled a pistol with his free hand and shot Rappa in both kneecaps. The big man dropped, screaming. Izuku kicked him in the face and Rappa went down hard. Let's move. Let's move, Izuku said to Mirko. They found Overhaul 3 levels down, a pristine white light laboratory. Eri was strapped to a medical table, IV lines running from her small arms into collection bags. She was unconscious, pale, barely breathing. Overhaul stood over her, wearing his plague mask, gold eyes cold and calculating. So, he said, not looking up. The Red Hood, I've heard stories, and you brought a pet rabbit. Let the girl go, Izuku said, drawing his pistols. Why would I do that? She's valuable. Her quirk is unique. Rewind. She can reverse the state of anything, living, non-living. With her blood, I'm creating a drug that erases quirks. I'll reshape society, make it pure again. By torturing a child, by using a resource. Overhaul finally looked at them. She's not even human. She's a tool, a means to an end. Something snapped inside Izuku. The rage he'd kept controlled, channeled into his mission, suddenly boiled over. The green glow returned to his eyes. The Lazarus rage, the madness that came from dying and being reborn. Mirko, he said, his voice shaking. Get the girl. I'm going to kill this bastard. Izuku. Now. Mirko heard the edge in his voice, the dangerous, fractured edge. She moved, using her speed to reach the medical table. She tore away the IV lines and scooped Eri into her arms. I've got her. Be careful. But Izuku wasn't listening. He was already moving. Overhaul raised his hands, his quirk activating. Spikes of stone erupted from the floor, aimed at Izuku. Fast. Deadly. Anyone else would have been impaled. Izuku moved faster. His Lazarus-enhanced speed let him dodge, weaving between spikes like smoke. He closed the distance in heartbeats. Overhaul tried to touch him, to disassemble him. Izuku grabbed Overhaul's wrist and twisted. Bones snapped. Overhaul screamed. You tortured her, Izuku said, his voice a low growl. For years. You broke her, bled her, treated her like an object. He punched Overhaul in the face. The plague mask shattered. Overhaul's nose broke, blood streaming. Izuku hit him again, and again. Each punch fueled by memories of his own torture, his own helplessness. You're just like him, Izuku snarled. Just like All for One. Monsters who think power gives you the right to hurt people. Overhaul tried to activate his quirk again. Izuku pulled a quirk-erasing bullet from his belt, stolen from this very facility, and jammed it into Overhaul's neck. The Yakuza leader's eyes went wide as his quirk vanished. Irony is a bitch, isn't it? Izuku said. He pulled out his pistol and placed the barrel against Overhaul's forehead. Wait, Overhaul gasped. Please, I can pay you, give you resources, anything. I don't want your money. Izuku's finger tightened on the trigger. I want you gone. Izuku. Mirko's voice cut through the rage. She stood by the door, Eri in her arms. The little girl was awake now, watching with wide, frightened eyes. Not in front of the kid. Izuku hesitated. The green glow in his eyes flickered. He looked at Eri, at her small face, her terrified expression. She'd seen enough violence, enough death. He didn't need to add more to her trauma. Slowly, Izuku lowered the gun. He stood, leaving Overhaul bleeding on the floor. You're lucky, he said. The kid saved your life. He walked toward Mirko and Eri. But if I ever see you again, there won't be a second chance. They left the compound, moving quickly through the corridors. Behind them, they could hear the Hasaikai scrambling, trying to figure out what happened. By the time they reached the surface, sirens were wailing. Police. Heroes. Someone had finally called it in. Mirko carried Eri to a safe location, a small apartment Izuku used as a safe house. They laid the girl on a bed, covering her with blankets. She looked so small, so fragile. Mirko cleaned her wounds while Izuku called a contact, a retired hero-turned-doctor who asked no questions. Is the bad man gone? Eri whispered, her voice tiny. Izuku knelt beside the bed. He pulled off his helmet, showing his face. The scars, the white streak, the tired green eyes. He's gone, Izuku said gently. He won't hurt you anymore, not while I'm breathing. Promise? I promise. Izuku reached out slowly, letting her see his hand. You're safe now. We're going to find you a home, a real home, with people who will love you. Eri's eyes filled with tears. She reached out and grabbed his hand. Her grip was weak but desperate. Thank you, she whispered. Izuku felt something break inside him. Not in a bad way, in a healing way. Saving Eri didn't erase his own trauma, didn't undo what All for One had done to him, but it reminded him of something important. He wasn't just a weapon. He wasn't just rage and violence. He could still save people. That night, after the doctor had examined Eri and declared her stable, after they'd contacted a hero agency that specialized in child protection, Izuku and Mirko sat on the apartment roof. The city sprawled below them, lights twinkling in the darkness. "You did good today," Mirko said, leaning against his shoulder. "I almost killed him in front of her." "But you didn't. You controlled it." Mirko reached up and touched his face, turning him to look at her. "That's what matters. You're not a monster, Izuku. You're someone who does monstrous things to protect people. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yeah. A monster wouldn't care about that little girl, wouldn't stop to spare her more trauma." Mirko kissed him softly. "You're a good man doing a bad job, and I love you for it." Izuku stared at her. "You love me?" "Yeah," Mirko grinned. "No hesitation. I love you, you violent, brutal, heroic bastard. Deal with it." Izuku laughed. It was genuine, full of surprise and warmth. "I love you too." They kissed on that rooftop, two broken people finding wholeness in each other. Below them, the city slept, unaware of the two guardians watching over it. Unaware of the Red Hood and the Rabbit Hero, partners in violence and love. But Izuku's war wasn't over, and his past was about to catch up with him. The alert came 3 days later. Mirko was at the Hero Commission office, filing paperwork on a captured villain. Izuku was at his base, monitoring police channels. Then his screen lit up with an emergency broadcast. Multiple villain attacks across Musutafu. All students and civilians are advised to evacuate. Heroes respond immediately. This is not a drill. Izuku pulled up camera feeds. His blood ran cold. The USJ. The Unforeseen Simulation Joint, a massive training facility where UA students practiced rescue operations. And it was under attack, the League of Villains, led by Shigaraki, backed by All for One's resources. They deployed a small army of thugs and a massive bioengineered monster called the Nomu, their target, Class 1A. Aizawa was fighting alone, trying to protect his students. 13 had been disabled. All Might hadn't arrived yet, and the students were dying. Izuku watched Tsuyu Asui, the frog girl hero student, trying to protect her classmates from the Nomu. The massive creature backhanded her across the plaza. She hit a wall hard, blood streaming from her mouth. The Nomu advanced, ready to deliver the killing blow. Izuku moved. He grabbed his gear with practiced efficiency. Helmet, guns, ammunition, a high-caliber sniper rifle he'd been saving for a special occasion. He activated his communication device. "Mirko, USJ, League of Villains, meet me there." "On my way," Mirko responded immediately. "No questions, just action." Izuku loaded his gear into his motorcycle, a custom-built machine, silent and fast. He roared through the streets, weaving through traffic, ignoring red lights. The USJ was 20 minutes away at legal speeds. He made it in 7. He ditched the motorcycle 2 blocks away and sprinted to the facility. His Lazarus-enhanced speed let him cover ground impossibly fast. He reached the exterior wall, scaled it in seconds, and positioned himself on the mountain zone overlooking the central plaza. Below, chaos reigned. Aizawa was down, his arms broken, face bloody. Shigaraki stood over him, hands reaching for the hero's face. The students were scattered, fighting desperately. And the Nomu had Tsuyu by the throat, lifting her off the ground. Izuku set up the sniper rifle. He looked through the scope, dialing in the target, the Nomu's exposed brain. Massive, pulsing. A perfect weak point. He exhaled slowly. Blam! The rifle kicked against his shoulder. The round crossed the distance in a fraction of a second. It struck the Nomu's brain, tearing through the tissue. The creature's arm exploded, blown off by the force of the impact. It dropped Tsuyu, roaring in pain and confusion. Every head in the plaza snapped toward the mountain zone. Red Hood stood there, rifle in hand, his metallic helmet gleaming in the artificial sunlight. Beside him, Mirko landed in a crouch, having just vaulted over the outer wall. "Class 1A!" Izuku's voice boomed across the facility, amplified by his helmet speakers. "Take notes. This is how you handle trash." He slung the rifle over his shoulder and drew his pistols. Then he jumped. The fall was easily 50 feet. He dropped like a stone, landing in the center of the plaza with an impact that cracked the concrete. His knees absorbed the shock, Lazarus-enhanced muscles handling what would have killed a normal person. He rose slowly, dual pistols aimed at the surrounding villains. "Who the hell are you?" Shigaraki demanded, scratching at his neck obsessively. "Your worst nightmare," Izuku said. He fired. The bullets tore through the villain army. Headshots, chest shots, kneecaps. He moved through the crowd like a dancer, each step precise, each shot lethal. Villains dropped left and right, dead or incapacitated. Those who tried to use quirks found themselves outpaced, outgunned, outclassed. Mirko joined the carnage, her powerful legs shattering bones. She kicked one villain so hard he flew into 3 others, taking them all down. "This is what I'm talking about," she shouted, grinning wildly. "Now, this is a fight!" The students watched in shock and horror. They'd been trained to capture villains, to minimize harm, to be heroes. Red Hood and Mirko were not heroes. They were executioners. The Nomu, regenerating from its wound, turned toward Izuku. It moved with frightening speed, crossing the plaza in a blur. Its remaining arm swung at Izuku's head. He ducked, feeling the wind of the blow. The Nomu's fist cratered the ground where he'd been standing. "Fast," Izuku muttered. "Durable, regenerating, multiple quirks." He holstered his pistols and pulled out a thermite grenade. "Let's see how you handle this." He dodged the Nomu's attacks, moving with enhanced speed and precision. The creature was strong, but predictable. All power, no tactics. Izuku waited for an opening, then darted in close. The Nomu tried to grab him. He rolled under its arm, came up behind it, and jammed the thermite grenade into the exposed brain cavity. "Burn," he said. The grenade detonated. White-hot thermite erupted, incinerating the Nomu's brain from the inside. The creature shrieked, a horrible sound, then collapsed. Its massive body hit the ground and didn't move. Dead. The plaza went silent. Villains stared in shock. Students stared in horror. Even Shigaraki looked shaken, his hand frozen mid-scratch. Then the entrance doors exploded open. "I am here!" All Might arrived in his hero form, massive and powerful, his smile bright and his presence overwhelming. He took in the scene, the bodies, the blood, the destroyed Nomu, the Red Hood standing in the center of it all. His smile vanished. "You!" All Might's voice shook with barely controlled rage. "Villain, stand down immediately!" Izuku laughed. It was a hollow, bitter sound. "Villain? That's rich, coming from you. You have killed these people. You have violated every principle of heroism. I saved your students." Izuku gestured to Class 1A, who were watching the confrontation with wide eyes. "Where were you? Too busy posing for the cameras? Too busy being the symbol of peace to actually save anyone?" "I was responding to the alert. You were late. Just like you're always late." All Might's expression shifted. Confusion, recognition. Something in Izuku's voice, the way he stood, triggered a memory. That voice, your. Izuku reached up. His fingers found the helmet's release mechanism. Hiss. The helmet unsealed. He pulled it off slowly, revealing his face, the scars around his jaw, the white streak cutting through green hair, the dead, cold green eyes that had once been full of hope and admiration. All Might's legs gave out. He dropped to his knees, the symbol of peace reduced to a broken man. "Young Midoriya?" The students gasped. Aizawa, struggling to sit up, stared in disbelief. Shigaraki cackled, delighted by the drama. "Oh, this is too good. The dead student returns. Master's plan worked perfectly." But Izuku ignored him. His eyes were locked on All Might. "I waited for you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. But in the silence of the plaza, everyone heard. 3 days in that warehouse. 3 days while he beat me with a crowbar. 3 days listening to your voice on that audio feed, promising you were coming. All Might's face crumpled. Tears streamed down his cheeks. "I tried. I searched everywhere. I'm so sorry." "Sorry?" Izuku's voice rose, cracking with emotion. "Sorry doesn't bring me back. Sorry doesn't erase the pain. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you chose them over me. I had to save the city. You had to save your successor." Izuku's hands were shaking. Not from fear, from rage, from pain. "You gave me one for all. You told me I could be a hero. You made me believe I mattered. And then you let me die alone in the dark. I didn't know where you were. All for One told you. He sent you coordinates, but you were too busy fighting Nomus, too busy protecting the masses, too busy being the symbol to save one boy." Izuku's voice broke, tears mixed with the blood on his face. "I died, All Might. I died believing in you, believing heroes would come, believing I was worth saving. You were." All Might reached out, desperate. "You are. Young Midoriya, please. Stop calling me that." Izuku's scream echoed through the facility. "That kid died in the explosion. What came back is something else. Something you created by failing." He put the helmet back on. The moment of vulnerability vanished, replaced by the cold, modulated voice of the Red Hood. "Stay out of my way, All Might. I'm doing your job. Killing the villains you're too weak to stop. Protecting the innocent you're too slow to save. He pulled a smoke bomb from his belt. Mirko moved to his side, ready to cover their exit. And if you try to stop me, Izuku said, his voice deadly serious, I'll put you in the ground next. He threw the smoke bomb. Gray clouds erupted, filling the plaza. When they cleared, Red Hood and Mirko were gone. Only All Might remained, kneeling in the center of the carnage, surrounded by the bodies of villains and the shocked faces of his students. Sensei? Midoriya, no, Kirishima, the red-haired boy with the hardening quirk, approached cautiously. What was that? All Might couldn't answer. He stared at the space where Izuku had been standing, his mind replaying every word, every accusation, every truth he'd tried to hide from himself. He'd failed his successor, his chosen one, the boy he'd promised to train, the boy he'd sworn to protect, and that failure had created something dark, something lethal, something that might be unstoppable. Class 1A was quiet as they returned to UA. The police had arrived, arrested the surviving League members, and cordoned off the USJ. Aizawa was in the hospital with severe injuries. 13 was stable but shaken, and All Might. All Might had retreated to an empty classroom, his muscular form fading to reveal Toshinori Yagi, gaunt and broken. Principal Nezu found him there, staring at an old photo. It showed All Might and a green-haired boy, both smiling, both full of hope. Taken 10 months before the warehouse. So it's true, Nezu said softly, his paws clasped behind his back. Midoriya survived. He died, Toshinori whispered. What survived is something else. The Red Hood. We've been tracking his activities for 2 years. Violent, efficient, lethal, but also effective. Crime in his territories has dropped 40%. Drug-related deaths among minors are down 60%. Human trafficking rings have been dismantled. Nezu sat on a desk. He's doing what heroes cannot, operating outside the law to achieve what the law prevents. He's killing people. He's killing villains. Nezu's eyes were sharp, intelligent, calculating. Villains who have evaded justice, who prey on the innocent, who would never stop otherwise. He paused. I'm not saying his methods are right, but I'm saying they're complicated. He hates me. He's traumatized by what All for One did to him, by what he perceives as your abandonment. Nezu hopped off the desk, but trauma doesn't erase his heroic instincts. He saved Eri from the Yakuza. He stopped the drug trade from targeting children. He saved your students today. By killing. By surviving. Nezu walked to the door. The question isn't whether what he's doing is right or wrong. The question is, can you save him a second time? Can you reach the boy he was beneath the anger and pain? Toshinori looked at the photo again. At Izuku's bright smile, I don't know. Then perhaps you should find out, before he's lost completely. Nezu left. Toshinori sat alone with his memories and his guilt. Across the city, in a safe house high above the streets, Izuku removed his helmet and gear. His hands were still shaking. Seeing All Might again had reopened wounds he thought were scarred over. Confronting his former mentor had felt like ripping off a bandage. It hurt. God, it hurt. Mirko entered the room, carrying 2 beers. She handed one to him and sat beside him on the couch. You okay? No, Izuku admitted. But I will be. That was intense. Seeing him again. He looked so broken. Izuku took a long drink. Part of me wanted to forgive him, to believe it wasn't his fault. But the part that died in that warehouse, the part that spent 3 days waiting for rescue that never came, that part can't forgive. You don't have to forgive him, Mirko said gently. She took his hand, squeezing. What he did or didn't do hurt you, changed you. You're allowed to be angry. I'm more than angry. Izuku struggled for words. I'm different. The Lazarus Pit changed me fundamentally. I can't be the hero I wanted to be, can't follow the rules I once believed in. Good. Mirko turned to face him. Because the hero you wanted to be would be dead by now. The rules you believed in protect the wrong people. What you are now, what we are together, is more effective, more real. We're killers. We're protectors. Mirko cupped his face. We protect people that heroes overlook, people the system fails, and yes, we kill to do it. But every person you've killed was someone who'd hurt others, who'd keep hurting others if you didn't stop them. Does that make it right? I don't know, Mirko said honestly, but it makes it necessary, and in a world full of villains with godlike quirks, sometimes necessary is all we've got. Izuku leaned forward, resting his forehead against hers. What if I can't stop? What if the killing becomes too easy? then I'll stop you. Mirko's voice was firm. We're partners. We keep each other in check. You pull me back when I go too far. I pull you back when you slip. That's how this works. And if we both slip, Mirko smiled, but it was sad. Then we slip together. But I don't think we will. Because underneath all the anger and violence, you're still someone who cares, who saves kids like Eri, who protected those students even though you hate their teacher. I don't hate All Might, Izuku corrected quietly. I hate that I still love him. Hate that part of me still wants his approval. That's what makes you human. Mirko kissed him softly. And human is good. Monsters don't doubt themselves. They sat together in the quiet, two warriors finding peace in each other's presence. Outside, the city continued its endless cycle, crime and punishment, violence and justice, heroes and villains. But in that moment, Izuku and Mirko were simply two people trying to make sense of a world that didn't make sense. A world where good people died, bad people thrived, and the only way to change things was to become something in between. The weeks following the USJ incident were chaotic. Red Hood's identity as Izuku Midoriya became public knowledge. The media went insane. Some called him a tragic victim turned vigilante. Others called him a dangerous criminal. The Hero Commission issued a warrant for his arrest. But no hero agency wanted to actually pursue it because Red Hood was winning. Crime rates continued to plummet in his territories. Villain organizations were dismantling themselves to avoid his wrath. The streets were safer. People were safer. And despite his violent methods, public opinion was split. Many citizens secretly supported him. He does what heroes won't, one interview subject said. My daughter was murdered by a villain 3 years ago. The hero who caught him let him escape to avoid property damage. Red Hood wouldn't have let that happen. He's a monster, another said. No one should have the right to decide who lives and dies. But heroes do that anyway, a third argued. They just do it with more acceptable violence. At least Red Hood is honest about it. The debate raged. But Izuku didn't care about public opinion. He cared about results. And his results spoke for themselves. He continued his operations with Mirko, targeting high-value villains and criminal organizations. They hit a sex trafficking ring and freed 40 women. They stopped a quirk supremacist group planning to bomb a quirkless shelter. They intercepted a shipment of illegal weapons headed for a villain army. Each operation was brutal, efficient, lethal. And each time, they saved people that the hero system had overlooked. But All Might couldn't let it go. He searched for Izuku, leaving messages, trying to arrange meetings. Izuku ignored them all until one message came that he couldn't ignore. Young Midoriya, I know you don't want to hear from me. I know you have every right to hate me, but I need to tell you something about All for One, about what he's planning. Please, meet me. Just once, for the sake of everyone you're trying to protect. Izuku stared at the message. Mirko read it over his shoulder. It could be a trap, she said. It probably is. Izuku closed the message. But if All for One is planning something, I need to know. He's the one who killed me, who made me what I am. Then we go together, and we go armed. The meeting location was neutral ground, an abandoned observatory outside the city. Izuku and Mirko arrived early, scouting the perimeter. No traps, no heroes waiting in ambush. Just All Might, in his skeletal form, sitting on a bench and looking up at the stars. Izuku approached, helmet off, showing his face. Mirko stayed back, watching for threats. Young Midoriya, All Might said, standing slowly. He looked older, more tired. Thank you for coming. Make it quick, Izuku said coldly. I have work to do. All Might nodded, accepting the hostility. All for One is planning something big. We've intercepted communications, he's gathering resources, recruiting villains, building an army. So, that's your problem. You're the symbol of peace. It's everyone's problem. All Might turned to face him fully. He's targeting you specifically. You were supposed to die in that warehouse, but you survived. That makes you an anomaly in his plans. A threat. Good. Let him come. I'll finish what you couldn't. Young Midoriya, stop calling me that. Izuku's voice cracked. I'm not your student anymore. I'm not your successor. I'm the ghost you created by failing. All Might flinched like he'd been struck. You're right. You're absolutely right. I failed you in the worst way possible. I let you down when you needed me most, and I can never undo that. Can never make it right. Then why are we here? Because despite everything, despite what I did and what you've become, I still care about you. All Might's voice broke. You were like a son to me. Seeing what you've been through, knowing I could have prevented it, it's destroyed me. You don't get to feel destroyed, Izuku said harshly. You don't get to claim pain over what happened to me. You're still alive, still the symbol, still praised and celebrated. I'm the one who died, who came back wrong. I know. Tears streamed down All Might's gaunt face. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, don't deserve your trust, but I'm asking anyway. Not for me, for the people All for One will hurt, for the innocents who will die if we can't stop him. Izuku was silent for a long moment. He wanted to say no, to walk away, to let All Might face All for One alone and fail again, but he thought of Eri, of the students at USJ, of all the people he'd saved in the past 2 years. What's the plan? He finally asked. All Might's relief was visible. We've located one of his main bases. We need to hit it hard and fast before he can relocate. But he'll have heavy security, Nomus, high-end villains. It requires a coordinated strike. And you want me to help? I want us to work together one more time. Then you can go back to hating me. Izuku looked at Mirko. She shrugged, leaving the decision to him. He turned back to All Might. Fine. One operation, then we're done. He put his helmet back on. Send me the details. We'll plan from there. All Might nodded, hope flickering in his eyes. Thank you, Young. He caught himself. Thank you, Midoriya. Izuku walked away without another word. Mirko followed. Behind them, All Might stood alone in the observatory, watching them disappear into the night. I'll save you yet, he whispered to the darkness. I swear it. But Izuku was beyond saving, and deep down, All Might knew it. The base was a fortified compound in the mountains, hidden behind layers of false companies and shell corporations. All for One had been using it to store resources, develop Nomus, and plan his next move. According to All Might's intelligence, it was lightly guarded. Only a dozen high-end villains and a few prototype Nomus. Izuku didn't believe that for a second. It's a trap, he said, studying the blueprints. They were in his war room, All Might standing awkwardly by the door, Mirko lounging on the desk. All for One knows we're coming. He's baiting us. Possibly, All Might admitted, but we can't ignore this. The resources inside could be used to create catastrophic weapons. Or the resources inside are bait to get us all in one place so he can finish what he started. Izuku zoomed in on the central building. This compound has one entrance and one exit. If he wanted to trap us, this would be the perfect location. So what do you suggest? Mirko asked. We go in expecting an army, we bring overwhelming force, and we have an exit strategy. Izuku pulled up a list of heroes. We need backup, real backup, people who can handle high-end threats. The top heroes won't work with a wanted vigilante, All Might said carefully. Then we don't ask the top heroes. Izuku highlighted 3 names. Endeavor, Hawks, Edge-a-Shot. They're pragmatic. They'll help if it means taking down All for One. All Might looked uncertain. Endeavor hates vigilantes, and Hawks works for the Commission. Endeavor hates All for One more, and Hawks is smart enough to know when to bend the rules. Izuku sent the message. Trust me, they'll come. He was right. Within an hour, all 3 heroes confirmed. The operation was set for the following night. Izuku spent the day preparing, checking weapons, reviewing plans, briefing Mirko on contingencies. He was thorough, professional, but underneath, anxiety gnawed at him. This was All for One. The man who'd tortured him, killed him, created the monster he'd become. This was personal. The night of the raid was cold and clear. 6 figures stood on the ridge overlooking the compound. All Might in his hero form, Endeavor blazing with flames, Hawks with his wings spread, Edge-a-Shot coiled and ready, Mirko cracking her knuckles, and Red Hood, helmet on, dual pistols loaded. The plan is simple, Izuku said, his modulated voice cutting through the night. Endeavor takes the front entrance. Draw their attention. Hawks provides aerial support and reconnaissance. Edge-a-Shot infiltrates through the ventilation systems to disable security. Mirko and I go through the east wall. All Might holds the perimeter in case anything tries to escape. And if it's a trap? Endeavor asked, his flames casting harsh shadows. Then we spring it and fight our way out. Izuku chambered around. This is All for One. There's no scenario where this is easy. Agreed, Hawk said, his usually cheerful demeanor serious. But if we can cut off his resources, we hurt his organization significantly. It's worth the risk. Let's move. They descended on the compound like a storm. Endeavor hit the front gate with a massive fire blast, melting the metal and announcing their presence. Alarms blared. Villains poured out of the buildings, quirks activating. Hawks launched feather blades, taking out guards from above. Edge-a-shot slipped through openings too small for normal people, disabling cameras and security systems. Mirko and Izuku hit the east wall. She kicked it with her full strength, powered by years of training. The concrete exploded inward. They rushed through the gap, guns and fists ready. Inside was a nightmare. The compound was bigger than the blueprints suggested. Multiple sublevels, laboratories holding cells, and in the center, a massive chamber containing dozens of vat-grown Nomus. They hung in stasis, muscles bulging, quirks mutating. "This is worse than we thought," Mirko breathed. "Much worse," Izuku agreed. He raised his pistol toward the vats. "We need to destroy these before." The lights went out, emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. Then a voice echoed through speakers throughout the compound. "Welcome, heroes. Welcome, Red Hood. I've been expecting you. All for one. You didn't really think I'd leave my base undefended, did you?" The voice was amused, mocking. "This entire compound is a testing ground for my Nomus, for my plans, and now for your limits." The vats began to open, fluid drained. The Nomus inside started moving, their eyes snapping open, glowing red in the darkness. "Oh shit," Mirko muttered. "Run!" Izuku grabbed her arm and they sprinted toward the exit. Behind them, 20 Nomus tore free of their restraints and gave chase. Outside, the situation was deteriorating. More villains were emerging from hidden entrances, high-end threats with powerful quirks. Endeavor was fighting 3 at once, his flames barely holding them back. Hawks was dodging projectiles and providing cover fire. Edge-a-shot was being overwhelmed, and All Might. All Might was staring at the main building, where a single figure stood on the roof, all for one. "Hello, symbol of peace," the villain said, his voice carrying across the compound. He wore a black suit, his face hidden behind a mask. "Did you come to finish our dance? Or did you come to watch me break your student again?" "All for one." All Might's voice shook with rage. "This ends tonight." "Oh, it does, just not the way you think." All for one raised his hand. Every Nomu in the compound stopped fighting. They turned as one toward the heroes, their movements synchronized, controlled. "I've upgraded my control systems," All for One explained casually. "These Nomus aren't just strong, they're coordinated, and they have orders to capture, not kill, specifically to capture the Red Hood." Izuku's blood ran cold. He emerged from the building with Mirko, both covered in Nomu blood. "You want me? Come get me yourself, you coward!" Temper, All for One scade. "You've grown so violent, young Midoriya. What happened to the boy who wanted to save everyone with a smile?" "You killed him," Izuku shouted. "You beat him to death in that warehouse." "Did I?" All for One tilted his head. "Or did I free him? Free him from the delusion that heroes matter. That hope matters. I showed you the truth. Power is all that matters. Power to control, power to take, power to kill. I'm nothing like you. Aren't you?" All for One gestured to the compound. "You've killed more people in 2 years than some villains kill in a lifetime. You've built an empire on fear and violence. You've become exactly what I wanted. A perfect demonstration that even the purest hero candidate can be corrupted. I'm not corrupted. I'm doing what heroes won't." Semantics. All for One's voice hardened. "Now, you have a choice. Surrender yourself, and I'll let your friends leave. Fight, and I'll kill them all, starting with the rabbit." Izuku looked at Mirko. At All Might, at the heroes fighting desperately against overwhelming odds. The Nomus were closing in. The villains were winning. He couldn't let them die. Not for him. Izuku, "No," Mirko said, reading his expression. "Don't you dare. I have to." He started walking toward All for One. "He wants me. I won't let him hurt anyone else." Young Midoriya, "Stop." All Might moved to intercept him. "This is exactly what he wants." "I know." Izuku kept walking. "But I'm not the helpless kid I was 2 years ago. I'm stronger, faster, better." He reached the center of the compound. The Nomus formed a circle around him. All for One descended from the building, landing gracefully. "Smart choice," the villain said. "Now, let's see what the Lazarus Pit really created." He moved faster than anyone expected. One moment, he was 10 feet away. The next, his hand was around Izuku's throat, lifting him off the ground. Izuku's helmet cracked under the pressure. "I'm going to enjoy breaking you again," All for One whispered, "and this time there's no resurrection waiting." But Izuku smiled behind his damaged helmet. Who said I came alone? All for One frowned. Then he heard it. The rumble. The sound of engines. He looked up. Dozens of helicopters descended on the compound, military grade, armed, and from the open doors, soldiers rappelled down, not hero agencies, not police, private military contractors, mercenaries, people Izuku had been cultivating connections with for 2 years. You talked about power, Izuku said, his voice strained but triumphant. But you forgot. Power isn't just quirks. It's resources, connections, people who owe you favors. He activated a device on his belt. His suit electrified, sending a massive shock through All for One. The villain released him, stumbling back. Izuku fell, rolled, and came up with both pistols drawn. "Everyone out!" he shouted. "Now!" The heroes didn't need to be told twice. They disengaged from their fights, retreating toward the perimeter. The mercenaries provided covering fire, their weapons specifically designed to handle quirk users. Explosions erupted throughout the compound as charges Edgeshot had planted earlier detonated. All for One roared in rage. He tried to pursue, but a coordinated attack from Endeavor and All Might drove him back. Hawks evacuated the heroes one by one, using his speed and flight. Mirko grabbed Izuku. "Time to go, tough guy." "Not yet." Izuku pulled out a detonator. "I rigged the Nomu vats with C4. If I blow them, it destroys 2 years of his work. It'll also bring the whole building down on us. Then we better run fast." He pressed the button. The explosion was massive. It tore through the compound, collapsing buildings, incinerating Nomus, destroying All for One's resources. Izuku and Mirko ran, his enhanced speed letting him carry her as the world exploded behind them. They made it to the perimeter. A helicopter swooped in. Hands reached down, pulling them up. All Might was already inside, his hero form fading. Endeavor and the others were in different helicopters, evacuating rapidly. Below the compound was an inferno. All for One stood in the center of the destruction, his mask cracked, his suit burned. He looked up at the helicopters and locked eyes with Izuku through the open door. "This isn't over," he said. His voice carried impossibly far, audible even over the roar of the fire. "I created you, and I will reclaim my creation." "I'm not yours," Izuku shouted back. "I'm my own." The helicopter banked away, putting distance between them and the destruction. Izuku watched the compound shrink into the distance, watched All for One's figure disappear into the smoke. They'd won. Barely. But they'd won. In the helicopter, All Might reached out tentatively. "Young Midoriya? That was incredible. You saved us all." Izuku looked at him. Behind the helmet's cracked visor, his green eyes were tired. "I did what I had to. That's all." "You're a hero," All Might said softly. "Whatever you call yourself, whatever methods you use, you're a hero." "No." Izuku looked away. "I'm something else. Something between hero and villain. Something this world created by failing to save a kid in a warehouse." He leaned back against the helicopter's wall. Mirko pressed against his side. Around them, the heroes were quiet, processing what they just survived. The war against All for One wasn't over. The battle for Izuku's soul wasn't over. But for tonight, they'd won. They'd survived. And that was enough. The aftermath of the compound raid reshaped the Hero Society's perspective on Red Hood. Officially, he was still a wanted vigilante. Unofficially, every hero who'd been there spread the word. He'd saved them. He'd coordinated the operation, provided resources, and blown up All for One's base at great personal risk. Public opinion shifted dramatically. Polls showed that 60% of citizens now supported his methods. The Hero Commission was forced to issue a statement. "While we cannot condone vigilante violence, we recognize Red Hood's contributions to public safety. We are evaluating our position." It was the closest thing to approval they could give without admitting their system was flawed. Izuku didn't care. He continued his operations, now more openly than before. He cleaned up entire districts, dismantled villain organizations, and saved people the hero system overlooked. Mirko stayed by his side, their partnership now legendary. The Red Hood and the Rabbit Hero. Lethal. Effective. Unstoppable. But All Might couldn't move on. He tried to reconcile with Izuku multiple times, left messages, arranged meetings, even showed up at Izuku's known safe houses. Each time, Izuku turned him away. "You can't fix this," Izuku told him during their last face-to-face conversation. They stood on a rooftop, the city sprawling below them. "You can't undo what happened, can't make me the person I was." I know, All Might said, his skeletal form hunched with guilt. But I want to try. Please, let me try. Why? Izuku's voice was sharp. For your conscience? So you can feel better about failing? For you, All Might's voice cracked. Because despite everything, I still care about you. You were my student, my successor, your failure. Izuku's words were like knives. Every time you see me, you see your biggest mistake, the kid you couldn't save, and you want to fix it. But I'm not a problem to solve. I'm a person who learned that heroes are fallible, that hope is conditional, that survival means becoming something darker. All Might was crying now. Then help me understand. Help me be better. Izuku stared at him for a long moment, then he sighed. You want to be better? Stop putting the symbol above the person. Stop choosing the many over the one. Stop believing that sacrifice is noble when it's just failure wearing a heroic mask. I'll try. That's all you can do. Izuku turned to leave, but don't expect forgiveness. I'm not there yet. Maybe I'll never be. I understand. All Might watched him go, but I'll keep trying. For as long as it takes. Izuku paused at the roof's edge. One more thing. All for One said I'm his creation, that he made me what I am. That's not true, All Might said firmly. Isn't it? Izuku looked back. He tortured me, killed me, set in motion everything that followed. Without him, I'd still be that hopeful kid. So in a way, he did create Red Hood. You created Red Hood, All Might countered. You chose to survive, to adapt, to become strong enough that no one could hurt you again. That's not his doing. That's yours. Izuku was quiet. Then, maybe. But the question is, am I a hero who kills or a killer who saves? And I don't know the answer. He jumped off the roof, grappling hook firing, vanishing into the night. All Might stood alone, his question hanging in the air unanswered. Months passed. Izuku and Mirko's reputation grew. They became urban legends, spoken of in whispers and headlines alike. The Red Hood and the Rabbit Hero. Protectors of the forgotten. Executioners of the wicked. They saved a child from a pedophile ring and left the perpetrators hanging from streetlights. They stopped a villain planning to poison a school's water supply and crucified him on the school's front gate as a warning. They rescued a woman from a domestic abuser and made sure he could never hurt anyone again. Some called them heroes. Others called them monsters. But everyone agreed they were effective. Their relationship deepened. Mirko moved into Izuku's main safe house, a fortified penthouse overlooking the city. They trained together, fought together, loved together. In quiet moments between battles, they were just two people trying to find peace in a violent world. Do you ever regret this life? Mirko asked one night. They lay in bed, the city lights streaming through the windows. The violence, the killing, the constant war. Every day, Izuku admitted. He ran his fingers through her hair. But I regret not fighting more. I was weak once. Let people hurt me. Let myself be victimized. Never again. You're not weak. Mirko propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at him. You're the strongest person I know, not because of the Lazarus pit or your enhanced abilities. Because you survived hell and came out refusing to be helpless. Is that strength? Or just stubbornness? Both. She kissed him. And I love you for it. I love you too. Izuku pulled her closer. You're the only good thing to come from all of this. The only part of my new life that doesn't feel like a curse. Then that's enough. Mirko rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. We're enough. They fell asleep like that, two warriors finding rest in each other's arms. Outside, the city continued its endless cycle. Crime and justice, darkness and light. And somewhere in the shadows, Red Hood watched over it all. A ghost protecting the living from the monsters that heroes couldn't stop. The final confrontation came on a rainy night in November. All for One emerged from hiding, done with subtlety. He launched simultaneous attacks across Musutafu, deploying every remaining Nomu, every loyal villain, every resource he had left. It was chaos. Buildings burned, civilians fled, heroes mobilized desperately. And in the center of it all for One stood atop the Musutafu Tower, issuing a challenge. Red Hood, I know you can hear me. Come face your creator. Come finish what we started in that warehouse. Izuku stood in his base, watching the feeds. Mirko was beside him, already suited up. This is it, she said. He's forcing the final battle. I know. Izuku pulled on his helmet. Stay here. Coordinate with the heroes. Make sure civilians get evacuated. Like hell I'm staying. I'm coming with you. Mirko, we're partners. Her voice was firm. We fight together, always. Izuku looked at her, at the woman who'd stood by him through everything, who'd loved him despite his darkness, who'd become his anchor in a world of chaos. Always, he agreed. They geared up. This wasn't just another operation. This was the endgame. Izuku loaded his pistols with armor-piercing rounds, strapped on extra magazines, equipped grenades, knives, and a backup shotgun. Mirko wore reinforced armor on her legs, protecting her greatest weapons. Together, they jumped from the penthouse and disappeared into the rainy night. The city was a war zone. Pro-heroes fought desperately against Nomus. Police tried to evacuate civilians. It was chaos, but Izuku and Mirko moved through it like ghosts, heading straight for the tower. They encountered resistance immediately. High-end villains blocked their path. Izuku cut them down without hesitation. Bullets. Blades, brutal efficiency. Mirko kicked through anyone who got close, her legs shattering bones and armor alike. They reached the tower's base. The entrance was guarded by 3 Nomus, high-end models, fast, strong, intelligent. "Cover me," Izuku said. He pulled out a rocket launcher he'd stolen from a villain arms dealer. "You brought a rocket launcher?" Mirko asked, incredulous. "I brought 2. He fired. The explosion obliterated the entrance and 2 of the Nomus. The third charged through the smoke. Mirko met it head-on, her kick connecting with its face. The impact cratered the street. The Nomu staggered. Izuku finished it with a headshot. They entered the tower. Inside was a nightmare maze of villains and traps. But Izuku had planned for this. He'd studied the building's blueprints, identified weak points, planted remote charges weeks ago, just in case. He detonated them as they climbed. Each explosion cleared floors above them, creating a path straight to the top. They emerged on the roof. Rain pounded down, lightning flashed, and All for One stood waiting, his arms spread wide. "My prodigal son returns," he said, his voice carrying over the storm. "I wondered if you'd have the courage." "I'm not your son," Izuku snarled. He aimed both pistols at All for One's chest. "I'm your worst mistake." "Mistake?" All for One laughed. "You're my greatest success. I took a weak, quirkless boy and forged him into a weapon. You kill without hesitation now. You rule the underworld. You've abandoned every principle you once held dear." "I abandoned the principles that got me killed," Izuku corrected. "I learned that mercy is a luxury, that evil needs to be destroyed, not reformed. And who taught you that lesson?" All for One spread his arms wider. "I did. So in a way, you are my son, my creation, my legacy." "Shut up!" Izuku fired. All for One moved. Impossibly fast. He dodged the bullets, closed the distance, and swung at Izuku's head. Izuku ducked, feeling the wind of the blow. All for One had multiple strength enhancement quirks. One hit would be fatal. Mirko launched herself at All for One from the side. Her kick connected with his ribs. He grunted, sliding back several feet. But he recovered instantly, turning toward her. "The rabbit hero. You've kept my creation busy, distracted him from his potential. For that, you die first." He lunged at Mirko. She dodged, but he was faster. His hand caught her leg. She screamed as her bones began to crack under his grip. "No." Izuku activated his Lazarus-enhanced speed. Time seemed to slow. He crossed the distance in a heartbeat, slamming into All for One with his full enhanced strength. They crashed through the roof's guardrail and tumbled across the slick surface. Izuku came up swinging. Fists enhanced by the Lazarus pit connected with All for One's body. Each hit carried enough force to crater concrete. But All for One had durability quirks. He absorbed the damage, then retaliated. They traded blows. The rooftop shook. Lightning flashed. Rain mixed with blood. Izuku was holding his own, his enhanced strength matching All for One's multiple quirks. But he was wearing down. All for One was a century old, with experience and power beyond measure. "You can't win," All for One said, catching Izuku's fist. "I have every advantage, I always have." "Maybe," Izuku growled. "But I have something you don't." "What's that?" "People who love me." Mirko, injured but not beaten, launched herself from behind. Her good leg caught All for One in the back of the head. He stumbled forward, his grip loosening. Izuku broke free, creating distance. "Plan?" Mirko asked, landing beside him. She was favoring her injured leg, but her eyes were fierce. "Same as always." Izuku reloaded his pistols. "We keep hitting him until he stops moving. Works for me." They attacked together. Coordinated. Brutal. Mirko used her mobility to harass All for One from multiple angles. Izuku used his enhanced strength and weapons to deal heavy damage. Together, they were more than the sum of their parts. All for One was powerful, but he'd underestimated their partnership, their synchronization, their willingness to sacrifice everything for each other. Izuku found an opening. He jabbed a quirk-erasing bullet into All for One's neck, his last one, saved for this exact moment. The villain's eyes went wide as his quirks vanished. Impossible, he gasped. Very possible. Izuku emptied both pistols into All for One's chest. The bullets tore through flesh and bone. All for One stumbled back, blood pouring from dozens of wounds, but he smiled. You've become exactly what I wanted. A killer, a monster. And now the world will see. I'm not a monster, Izuku interrupted. He walked forward, standing over the dying villain. I'm a survivor. There's a difference. All for One laughed wetly. Tell yourself that. But everyone else will see the truth. You're no hero. Izuku put a bullet through his forehead. All for One fell backward, his body hitting the roof's edge, then tumbling over. He plummeted 50 stories and crashed into the street below. Dead. Izuku stood at the edge, looking down at the body. Rain washed the blood from his hands. Behind him, Mirko limped over and wrapped an arm around his waist. It's over, she said softly. Yeah. Izuku put his arm around her shoulders. It's over. They stood together on that rooftop, two scarred warriors watching the sun rise over a city they'd helped save. Below, heroes were regrouping. Civilians were emerging from shelters. Life was returning to normal. But for Izuku Midoriya, the boy who died and came back as something else, normal was a distant memory. He'd crossed lines, killed people, become the thing hero society feared, but he'd also saved lives, protected the helpless, stopped evil that heroes couldn't touch. Was he a hero or a villain? A savior or a killer? Maybe he was both. Maybe he was neither. Maybe he was just a broken boy trying to make sure no one else suffered like he had. What now? Mirko asked. Izuku thought about it, about All Might's guilt, about the students who'd watched him kill, about the society that didn't know whether to thank him or arrest him, about the white streak in his hair and the scars on his soul. Now, he said finally, we keep going, keep fighting, keep protecting people however we can. Even if the world hates us for it, especially then. Izuku pulled her closer, because someone has to do the dirty work. Someone has to cross the lines heroes won't. And if that someone is us, then so be it. They kissed on that rooftop as the city awakened below them. Two anti-heroes in a world that demanded black and white. Two survivors in a system that valued symbols over people. Two partners who'd found love in the darkest places, Red Hood and Rabbit Hero, the ghost and the warrior. Two people who refused to be victims, who chose violence over helplessness, who became monsters so others didn't have to. And as the sun rose over Musutafu, they stood together, ready for whatever came next, because their war wasn't over. It would never be over. Evil was a constant. Villains would always emerge, and someone needed to stop them. That someone was Red Hood, and he would never stop, never falter, never become the helpless victim again. He'd died once, been reborn in green fire, and emerged as something new, something necessary, something this world needed, whether it admitted it or not. The city didn't sleep that night. How could it? All for One's body still lay in the street, surrounded by police tape and gawking crowds. News helicopters circled like vultures. Every screen in Japan showed the same image, the symbol of terror, dead, killed by a vigilante, killed by Red Hood. Izuku stood on a rooftop 3 blocks away, watching the chaos. His helmet was off, rain washing the blood from his face. The white streak in his hair gleamed under the streetlights. Mirko leaned against him, her injured leg bandaged but stable. They're coming for us, she said quietly. You know that, right? I know. Izuku holstered his pistols. We killed the biggest villain in history. The Hero Commission can't ignore that. Can't spin it. Can't make it fit their narrative. So what do we do? Izuku looked at her. At the woman who'd stood by him through everything, who'd loved him when he was unlovable, who'd chosen violence with him because it was necessary. We do what we always do. We survive. The alert came at dawn. Every hero agency in Japan received the same message from the Hero Public Safety Commission. Red Hood is now classified as a Class S threat. Capture on sight. Lethal force authorized. Izuku read the warrant on a stolen tablet. His own face stared back at him from the screen, alongside it Mirko's photo. Both wanted, both marked for death. Class S, Mirko said, reading over his shoulder. That's the same classification as All for One. Appropriate. Izuku crushed the tablet in his enhanced grip. We killed their boogeyman. Now they need a new one. Might as well be us. So they hunt us. Let them try. Mirko cracked her knuckles. We've survived worse. Have we? Izuku looked at the warrant again. The commission wasn't sending street-level heroes. They were sending the best. They're deploying Hawks, best genist, and Edgeshot. The fastest, the strongest, the most versatile. They're not playing around. Neither are we. The trap was set in the industrial district, an abandoned factory that Izuku had used as a weapons cache. The commission leaked its location through channels they thought were secure, channels that Izuku controlled. He knew they were coming. Lee had known for days, and he'd prepared accordingly. Hawks arrived first, his red wings spreading wide as he descended through the broken skylight. Best Genist came through the front entrance, his fiber quirk already activated, threads spreading like a web. Edgeshot slipped through ventilation shafts, his body thin as paper. They found Izuku standing in the center of the factory floor. Alone, no helmet, just him, his pistols, and that cold green stare. Young Midoriya, Best Genist said, his voice muffled by his high collar, "Please surrender. This doesn't have to end in violence." Doesn't it? Izuku's hands rested on his pistols. You're authorized to use lethal force. You came here to kill me. At least be honest about it. Hawks landed nearby, his usually cheerful expression serious. We're not here to kill you. We're here to bring you in. There's a difference. Is there? Izuku laughed bitterly. The commission sent 3 of the best heroes in Japan to capture 1 man. You think they expect me to survive the trip? Edgeshot's voice came from above, thin and precise. You killed All for One. That makes you dangerous, unpredictable. The commission can't allow that. I killed a monster who tortured and murdered innocent people for decades, who destroyed families, who created nomas from kidnapped civilians. I did what heroes couldn't. Izuku's voice rose. And your commission wants to punish me for it? You violated the law, Best Genist said firmly. Heroes don't kill. That's the foundation of our society. Your society let me die in a warehouse while All Might saved random buildings instead of his own student. Izuku's hands tightened on his pistols. Your society protected villains with quirk discrimination laws while they preyed on the quirkless. Your society is broken. Then help us fix it, Hawk said, stepping forward slowly. From inside the system, we can work together, make real change, but not like this. Not with violence. Violence is the only language monsters understand. Izuku drew his pistols in a blur. You think 3 heroes can stop me? All for One sent an army. You see how that turned out. He fired, Hawk's feathers intercepted the bullets, forming a shield. Best Genist's threads whipped toward Izuku from multiple angles, trying to bind him. Edgeshot shot forward, his body compressed into a blade aimed at Izuku's shoulder, disabling, not killing. Izuku moved. His Lazarus-enhanced speed let him dodge Best Genist's threads by millimeters. He rolled under Edgeshot's attack, came up shooting. Hawks was forced to defend, his feathers spreading to block. Izuku used the distraction to activate remote charges he'd planted days ago. Boom! 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 3 explosions, perfectly timed, perfectly placed. They didn't target the heroes, they targeted the factory's support columns. The building began to collapse. Shit! Hawks grabbed Best Genist and flew toward the exit. Edgeshot compressed himself and shot through falling debris. Izuku simply stood there, letting the ceiling crash down around him. When the dust cleared, he walked out of the rubble without a scratch. His Lazarus-enhanced durability had absorbed impacts that would have killed anyone else. The 3 heroes stared. How? Best Genist demanded. The Lazarus pit didn't just bring me back, Izuku said, brushing concrete dust from his jacket. It made me better. Stronger, faster, more durable. I'm not the quirkless kid you're thinking of. I'm something else entirely. Hawks launched feather blades, hundreds of them, moving at supersonic speeds. Izuku's hands became a blur, deflecting them with his pistols, the metal ringing like bells. A few got through, cutting his arms and chest. He didn't flinch. You'll have to do better than that. Best Genist tried again, this time using his threads to grab debris and hurl it at Izuku. Chunks of concrete the size of cars. Izuku shot them out of the air, his aim perfect. His bullets fragmenting the projectiles before they could connect. Edgeshot went for the disabling blow. He compressed his entire body into a thread thin enough to pierce through a building, aimed at Izuku's legs. Trying to cripple, not kill, Izuku caught the thread, With his bare hand, Edgeshot's eyes went wide. Impossible, Izuku yanked. Edgeshot was pulled off balance, his compressed form snapping back to normal. Izuku's other hand came up, pistol aimed at Edgeshot's face. Your quirk makes you thin, fast, but predictable. You follow straight lines. He didn't pull the trigger. Instead, he released Edgeshot and kicked him away. The hero tumbled across the ground, alive but dazed. I'm not trying to kill you, Izuku said, his voice cold. That's the only reason you're still breathing. Hawks and Best Jeanist regrouped, standing between Izuku and the downed Edgeshot. Both were breathing hard. They'd barely landed a hit, while Izuku looked untouched except for superficial cuts. You can't win this, Hawk said. Even if you beat us, more will come. The commission won't stop. I know. Izuku holstered his pistols. That's why I'm sending a message. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a USB drive. He tossed it to Hawks, who caught it instinctively. What is this? Evidence. Files I stole from All For One's servers before I destroyed his compound. Names, dates, locations. Every villain organization he funded. Every corrupt official he controlled. Every hero he blackmailed. Izuku's smile was cold, including 3 members of the Hero Public Safety Commission. Best Jeanist's threads went slack. You're lying. Am I? Check the drive. See for yourselves. Your precious commission has been working with villains for years, creating controlled conflicts to justify their existence, manufacturing threats to keep heroes employed. Izuku started walking backward toward the factory's rear exit. I killed All For One, but he wasn't the only monster in this system. He was just the most honest about it. Wait, Hawk shouted. If what you're saying is true, then your commission is going to have a very bad week. Izuku pulled a smoke bomb from his belt. Tell your bosses, I'm not their villain, but I'm not their hero either. I'm the line they won't cross, and that line is necessary. He threw the smoke bomb. Gray clouds erupted. When they cleared, Izuku was gone. Hawks immediately checked the USB drive. His face went pale as he scrolled through files. Oh God, it's all true. Best Jeanist looked over his shoulder. His usually stern expression crumbled. This implicates dozens of officials. If this goes public, Hero Society collapses, Hawks finished. He looked at the factory ruins at the direction Izuku had gone. He's not just fighting villains, he's fighting the system itself. Then he's an enemy of society, Best Jeanist said firmly. We have to stop him. Do we? Hawks pocketed the drive. Or do we stop the corruption he exposed? The 2 heroes stared at each other. Edgeshot groaned, slowly sitting up. Around them, the factory smoldered. And somewhere in the city, Red Hood watched from the shadows, knowing he'd planted a seed of doubt, a seed that would grow into something terrible or something necessary. The graveyard was empty at midnight. Rain fell softly, pattering on headstones. Izuku stood before a grave marked Oboro Shirakumo, hero student gone too soon. He'd chosen this place deliberately, neutral ground, sacred ground. I know you're here, Shigaraki. The villain stepped out from behind a mausoleum. Tamura Shigaraki, leader of the remaining League of Villains. But he looked different now, less feral, more focused. All For One's death had freed him from manipulation, and that freedom had brought clarity. Red Hood, Shigaraki said, his voice raspy but controlled. He kept his hands in his pockets, showing he wasn't here to fight. You killed my master. Your master killed me first. I just returned the favor. They stared at each other. 2 products of All For One's cruelty. 2 boys broken and remade into weapons. We're the same, Shigaraki said finally. They made us into monsters. No. Izuku's voice was hard. You wanted to destroy, I wanted to protect. We were never the same. Weren't we? Shigaraki walked closer, rain soaking his hoodie. All Might failed you. Society failed you. You died because heroes chose others over you. That's what created Red Hood. And what created you? A childhood accident that your master orchestrated. He killed your family, saved you, and twisted you into his weapon. We're both victims, Shigaraki, but I chose to protect people despite my pain. You chose to hurt them because of yours. Shigaraki's hands came out of his pockets, fingers twitching. You don't get to judge me. You kill people too. I kill people who deserve it. Villains, criminals, monsters who prey on the innocent. Izuku's eyes glowed faintly green, the Lazarus pit flickering behind his irises. You kill indiscriminately, children, civilians, anyone in your way, because they're all part of the system that failed us. So am I. Izuku's shout echoed through the graveyard. I was a civilian, a quirkless kid who wanted to help, and the system failed me. But I didn't turn that pain into senseless destruction. Shigaraki's hand shot out, fingers spread. Then maybe you should have. Izuku moved. His Lazarus-enhanced speed let him dodge Shigaraki's decay quirk, moving inside villain's reach. His fist connected with Shigaraki's stomach, like enhanced strength, driving the air from his lungs. Shigaraki stumbled back, gasping. You want to fight? Fine. But know this, I'm not some hero who'll hold back. I'm not all might. I'm what comes after. Shigaraki recovered, grinning through the pain. Good. I'm tired of heroes going easy on me. They clashed. Shigaraki's decay turned the ground to dust beneath their feet. Gravestones crumbled, mausoleums collapsed. Everywhere his hands touched, matter dissolved. But Izuku was faster. He stayed ahead of the decay wave, his enhanced reflexes predicting Shigaraki's movements. Izuku drew a pistol and fired. Shigaraki twisted, the bullet grazing his shoulder. He reached for a crumbling headstone and hurled chunks at Izuku. The projectiles turned to dust mid-flight but provided cover. Shigaraki rushed forward. Hands reaching, Izuku dropped his gun and met Shigaraki head-on. Hand-to-hand combat, every move precise, every strike calculated. He'd been trained by Mirko, who'd been trained by the best martial artists in Hero Society. Combined with his Lazarus strength, he was a perfect weapon. He caught Shigaraki's wrist, twisting it away from his body. His knee came up, connecting with Shigaraki's ribs. Bone cracked. The villain gasped but didn't go down. His other hand swung at Izuku's face. Izuku ducked, released the wrist, and drove his elbow into Shigaraki's jaw. Shigaraki fell. Izuku stood over him, breathing hard. The villain's hands were pressed against the wet ground, decay spreading in slow circles. But he didn't try to attack. He just stared up at Izuku with those red eyes. Go ahead, Shigaraki said. Kill me. Finish what you started with, Master. Izuku pulled out his pistol, aimed it at Shigaraki's head. His finger rested on the trigger, then he lowered the gun. No. What? I'm not killing you. Izuku holstered the weapon. You're a victim, Shigaraki, a tool that All for One used and discarded. Killing you won't fix anything, won't make me feel better, won't bring back the people you've hurt. Then what will? Shigaraki's voice cracked. What's the point of surviving if I'm just a broken weapon? The point is choice. Izuku extended his hand. All for One controlled you, made your decisions, shaped your worldview. But he's dead now. You're free. So choose. Do you keep destroying, or do you build something new? Shigaraki stared at the offered hand. You're asking me to become a hero? I'm asking you to become human again. Izuku's hand remained steady. I'm not a hero, I'm something else, something between, and I think you could be too. Use your power for something other than destruction. Help me tear down the systems that created us, but my way, with purpose, with limits. What limits? Izuku's voice went cold. You want to decay this world? Fine, but kids are off limits. Touch a child, hurt an innocent who can't defend themselves, and I'll decay you. Understood? Shigaraki looked at the hand, at Izuku's scarred face, at the white streak in his hair that marked him as someone who died and come back wrong. Someone like Shigaraki himself. Slowly, carefully, Shigaraki reached up and took the offered hand. Izuku pulled him to his feet. I can't promise I'll be good, Shigaraki said. I don't need you to be good, I need you to be better than you were. Izuku released his hand. All for One wanted you to be a symbol of destruction. Prove him wrong. Be a symbol of choice. Shigaraki nodded slowly. I'll try. But if I slip, then I'll put you down. No hesitation. No mercy. Izuku turned to leave. But I don't think you will. You're free now. Shigaraki, don't waste it. He walked away, leaving the villain standing alone in the destroyed graveyard. Behind him, Shigaraki stared at his hands. Hands that had destroyed so much. Hands that could decay anything, but maybe, just maybe, they could build something too. The Meta Liberation Army wasn't a villain organization, they were a revolution. Tens of thousands of members across Japan, all believing that quirks should be unrestricted. That power made right. That the strong deserved to rule. Their leader, Redestro, was a businessman by day, a revolutionary by night, and he'd been watching Red Hood's rise with great interest. He's perfect, Redestro said, studying footage of Izuku's fight with All for One. His office was massive, overlooking the city of Deka. Strong, ruthless, unbound by Hero Society's limitations. He's exactly what we need. Skeptic, his lieutenant adjusted his glasses. He's also unpredictable. He killed All for One, but spared the League of Villains. He operates by a code we don't fully understand. Then we'll convince him to understand ours. Destro stood, his stress quirk activating slightly. Dark lines spread across his skin, enhancing his already considerable strength. Contact Red Hood. Tell him I want to meet. Tell him I have an offer that will reshape Japan. The message reached Izuku through encrypted channels. A meeting. Neutral location. Destro himself would attend. Mirko read the message over Izuku's shoulder. It's a trap. Probably. Izuku crushed the phone. But Destro controls a significant portion of Japan's underground economy. If I'm going to operate long-term, I need to either ally with him or eliminate him. So we're going. We're going. The meeting location was an abandoned office building in Deku City, the Liberation Army's territory. Izuku and Mirko arrived at dawn, both fully armed. They'd brought back up 10 of Izuku's most trusted underworld contacts, positioned on surrounding rooftops with sniper rifles. Destro waited in the building's conference room. He sat at the head of a long table, flanked by his lieutenants, Skeptic, Trumpet, Getten, and Curious, all high-level quirk users, all dangerous. Red Hood, Destro said, standing with a smile, and the Rabbit Hero, welcome. Please, sit. Izuku didn't sit. He stood at the opposite end of the table, hands resting on his pistols. You wanted to talk. Talk. Direct. I appreciate that. Destro gestured to the city beyond the windows. You've done remarkable work, taken control of multiple criminal organizations, eliminated threats that heroes couldn't touch, reshaped the underworld according to your vision. Is there a point? The point is, you understand what we understand. That power should be unrestricted, that the strong make the rules, that hero society's limitations only protect the weak at the expense of the capable. Destro's smile widened. Join us. Together we'll destroy the hero system and build a new world where power makes right. Izuku stared at him. Then he laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. You think I believe that? That power makes right? Don't you? You've killed how many villains? Imposed your will on the underworld? Built an empire on violence? I built protection, Izuku corrected coldly. Every person I've killed deserved it. Every rule I've imposed protects the innocent, and every act of violence was necessary. Necessary, Destro repeated. So you admit violence has a place. Violence has always had a place, but it's a tool, not a philosophy. Izuku's hands tightened on his pistols. You want to unleash quirks without restriction? That means the strong prey on the weak. Children get hurt, families destroyed, society collapses into chaos. Society should collapse. It's built on a lie, the lie that everyone is equal when clearly they're not. Power doesn't make right, Izuku said, his voice like ice. It makes responsibility. You want to rule because you're strong? Fine. Then your responsibility is to protect the weak, not exploit them. You failed that test. Destro's smile vanished. So you refuse. I don't just refuse. I'm going to dismantle your organization piece by piece. Izuku drew his pistols, starting with you. Destro's stress quirk activated fully. His body expanded, muscles bulging, skin turning dark. He grew to nearly 8 feet tall, power radiating from him. You can't win this, Red Hood. This entire city is ours. We have thousands of soldiers. You have what? 2 people? I have something better. Izuku activated his communication device. I have allies who hate you more than they fear me. Shigaraki, if you're listening, now would be a good time. The building's windows exploded inward. Tomura Shigaraki crashed through on a wave of decay, his hands destroying the walls, the floor, everything he touched. Behind him came the remaining League of Villains. Dabi with his blue flames, Toga with her knives, Compress with his marbles, Spinner with his blades. Destro's lieutenants reacted immediately. Gaten created ice barriers. Trumpet used his voice to boost his allies. Curious deployed her explosions. But they weren't prepared for the coordinated assault. Izuku moved through the chaos like a ghost. His pistols barked, bullets finding targets with impossible accuracy. Destro swung at him with a fist the size of a car. Izuku dodged, rolled, came up shooting. His enhanced bullets punched through Destro's stress-hardened skin, drawing blood. Mirko engaged Getten, her powerful legs shattering the Liberation soldiers' ice constructs. She moved with savage grace despite her injured leg, every kick calculated to destroy. Getten tried to overwhelm her with volume, creating thousands of ice shards. Mirko simply kicked harder, the impacts generating enough force to pulverize the ice. Shigaraki and Dabi tore through the Liberation Army's reinforcements. Decay and flames worked in terrible synergy, destroying anyone who tried to stop them. This wasn't the League of Villains fighting for destruction. This was the League fighting for something else, for choice, for freedom from manipulation, for the chance to be more than weapons. Redestro realized he was losing. His organization, built over decades, was falling apart in minutes. He focused all his stress on Izuku, his power peaking. You dare bring villains into my city? I brought people who understand what you are. Izuku emptied his magazines into Redestro's chest. The bullets barely slowed him down. Frokish cried, "You talk about liberation, but you're just another tyrant, another person using power to control others." Redestro's fist came down like a meteor. Izuku couldn't dodge this one. The impact drove him through the floor, through the ceiling below, through multiple levels of the building. He crashed into the basement, concrete and rebar falling around him. Pain exploded through his body. Ribs cracked. His left arm broke. Blood filled his mouth. Then the Lazarus pit activated. Green energy erupted from Izuku's body. His eyes glowed with that terrible light. The madness that came from dying and being reborn surged through him, burning away the pain, healing his wounds, flooding him with strength that shouldn't exist. He rose from the rubble. Redestro was already coming down after him. Stress-enhanced body tearing through the building. He landed with an impact that shook the foundation. "You can't beat me. I'm the future. I'm liberation itself." Izuku's response was a primal roar. He launched himself at Redestro, Lazarus-enhanced speed, closing the distance instantly. His fist connected with Redestro's jaw. The sound was like thunder. Redestro's head snapped back, and for the first time, fear entered his eyes. "You're not liberation," Izuku snarled, his voice distorted by rage. "You're just another monster who thinks power justifies cruelty." He didn't give Redestro time to recover. His enhanced strength let him match the giant man blow for blow, fist against fist, power against power. But Izuku had something Redestro didn't: experience with pain, with loss, with dying. He knew how to push through agony that would break normal people. He drove Redestro back, each punch landing with devastating force. Redestro's stress armor cracked. His enhanced form began to shrink as he exhausted his power. Izuku didn't stop. He grabbed Redestro by the throat and slammed him into the basement wall. "Your liberation?" Izuku's voice was cold now, the Lazarus rage receding. "Denied." He pulled out a thermite grenade, the same type he'd used on the Nomu. He jammed it into Redestro's mouth and stepped back. "Wait." Redestro's eyes went wide. The grenade detonated. White-hot thermite erupted, incinerating Redestro's head from the inside. His massive body spasmed once, then collapsed. That dead, Izuku stood over the corpse, breathing heavily. Around him, the building groaned, structural integrity compromised by the fighting. He activated his comm. "Mirko, status?" "Gettin's down. The rest are retreating." Mirko's voice was strained but alive. "Building's coming down. We need to go." "Agreed. Everyone out." They evacuated as the building collapsed. The Liberation Army's headquarters, symbol of their power, reduced to rubble. Izuku and his unlikely allies regrouped 2 blocks away, watching the destruction. Shigaraki stood beside Izuku, both covered in dust and blood. "That was satisfying." "That was necessary," Izuku corrected. Redestro would have kept pushing. Kept trying to tear down society without a plan to replace it. Chaos for chaos's sake. "And that's different from what I did, how?" "You're asking the question." Izuku looked at him. "That's the difference." Dabi limped over, his flames extinguished. "So what now? The Liberation Army is headless. Their territory is open." "We don't take it," Izuku said firmly. "We let the heroes have it. Show them we're not trying to rule. We're trying to balance." "Balance between what?" Toga asked, her usual manic energy subdued. "Between justice and law, between protection and freedom, between the light that heroes represent and the darkness that I operate in." Izuku turned to face them all. The League, Mirko, his underworld allies. "We're not villains. We're not heroes. We're something this world needs but doesn't want to admit. We're the ones who do what's necessary." Shigaraki nodded slowly. "And if the heroes come after us for this, then we show them we're not their enemy." Izuku started walking away. "But we're not their servants either." The Commission's response to Deku City was predictable. Outrage. Red Hood had destroyed an entire villain organization, killed its leader, and caused massive collateral damage. The fact that he'd also saved the city from the Liberation Army's planned uprising was conveniently ignored. But Hawks couldn't ignore it. He'd reviewed the evidence from Izuku's USB drive. He'd seen the corruption, the lies, the manufactured conflicts. And he'd made a choice. He contacted Red Hood through encrypted channels. "We need to talk. Privately." They met on a rooftop at sunset. Hawks landed with his usual grace, wings folding behind him. Izuku stood at the roof's edge, helmet off, wind catching the white streak in his hair. "You saved my career," Hawks said without preamble. "That USB drive, the evidence. I gave it to the right people. 3 commission officials were arrested yesterday. More investigations are opening." "I didn't do it for you," Izuku replied. "I did it because corruption needs to be exposed." "Still, thank you." Hawks moved closer. "The Commission is terrified of you now, not just because of your power, because you threatened their control, because you showed that heroes aren't the only ones who can save people." Heroes should never have been the only ones. That's the problem with your symbol-based society. You made heroes into gods, and gods don't get their hands dirty. So you're the one who gets dirty instead? Someone has to. Izuku turned to face Hawks. "You're here to offer something. What is it?" Hawks grinned. "You're direct. I like that." His expression turned serious. "The Commission is splitting. Old guard versus new blood. The ones you exposed are being purged. The new leadership wants to negotiate with you." "Negotiate what?" "Conditional immunity. You operate in the shadows, handle threats heroes can't touch legally. In exchange, you stay off the radar. No public appearances. No challenges to hero authority. They want to legitimize me as their Black Ops asset. Basically. Yeah." Izuku was quiet for a long moment. He thought about Mirko, about the life they were building, about the enemies still out there, about the child she was carrying, though Hawks didn't know that yet. "I'll consider it," he finally said, "but I have conditions of my own." "Name them." 1. I choose my targets. No assassinations of political rivals, no hits on inconvenient heroes. I operate against real threats only. Agreed. 2. My methods remain my own. You don't get to dictate how I handle villains, you just get the results. That's harder to sell, but probably doable. 3. Mirko gets immunity too. She's my partner. Non-negotiable. Hawks hesitated. The rabbit hero is more visible than you. Harder to sweep under the rug. Then figure it out. She's with me. That's the deal. And if we can't agree to your terms, Izuku's smile was cold. Then I keep doing what I'm doing, but without even pretending to cooperate. Your commission gets to watch as I operate completely independently, with no oversight, no communication, no alignment with hero interests whatsoever. Hawks laughed despite himself. You've got leverage, I'll give you that. He extended his hand. I'll take your terms to the new leadership. No promises, but I'll fight for it. Izuku shook his hand. Do that? And Hawks? Yeah? Thank you for being honest, for actually investigating instead of just following orders. You're one of the good ones. Hawks flew away, his red wings catching the dying sunlight. Izuku watched him go, then pulled out his phone. He had a message to send to Mirko, to tell her about the deal, and to tell her they might finally have a future. The safe house was quiet when Izuku returned. Mirko sat on the couch, her injured leg propped up, watching the news coverage of Deku City. She muted it when he entered. You look tired, she said. Long day. Izuku dropped onto the couch beside her, killed a revolutionary, negotiated with a hero, and possibly secured our future, the usual. Our future. Mirko turned to face him fully. What does that mean? Izuku told her about Hawk's offer, about the conditional immunity, about operating in the shadows with government sanction, about the chance to stop running. Mirko listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. And you want to accept it, she finally said. I don't know what I want. Izuku ran his hands through his hair. Part of me wants to keep fighting, to burn the whole system down and build something better, but another part wants peace, wants a life. He looked at her. I'm tired, Mirko. Tired of fighting, tired of killing, tired of looking over my shoulder every second. I'm 21 years old and I've killed more people than some war veterans. When does it stop? When you decide it stops. Mirko took his hand. You're not all for one. You're not Redestro. You can choose to walk away, build something different. Can I, or am I too far gone? Only one way to find out. Mirko squeezed his hand. Accept their deal. Operate in the shadows. Do the dirty work nobody else will. But come home at night. Have a life outside the violence. Is that what you want? Mirko was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm pregnant. Izuku's world stopped. What? I'm pregnant. 8 weeks. Mirko's hand moved to her stomach. I found out last week. Was waiting for the right time to tell you. Guess now is as right as it gets. Izuku stared at her. At the woman who'd fought beside him. Who'd loved him despite his darkness. Who'd now tied her future to his in the most permanent way possible. We're going to have a baby, yeah. Mirko smiled, but it was nervous. I know the timing is terrible. We're wanted criminals. We're at war with half of society, but I'm not getting rid of it. This is happening. Izuku's hands were shaking. Not from fear, from something else. Something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. We're keeping it, he said firmly. Damn right we are. And I'm accepting Hawk's deal. Good. Our kid deserves better than a dead father. Izuku pulled Mirko close. I'll play their game, for now. Work in the shadows, be their weapon, but I come home every night to you, to our family. And if they betray us, then I remind them why they made the deal in the first place. Izuku's voice went cold. Touch you, touch our child, and I'll burn their world to ash. Every commission building, every hero agency, every safe house and secret base. I'll make All for One's rampage look like a training exercise. That's dark even for you. I died once. Came back wrong. But this? He placed his hand over hers on her stomach. This is my chance to come back right, to build something good from all the darkness. And I'll kill anyone who threatens that. Mirko kissed him. Fierce and desperate and full of love. Then let's build it together. They sat like that for hours, two warriors finding peace in each other's arms. Outside, the city continued its endless cycle, but inside, in that safe house, a new future was being forged, a future that no one saw coming, a future that would change everything. The meeting with Hawk's new commission contacts happened a week later. Underground bunker, neutral territory, maximum security. Izuku came alone, helmet on, fully armed. The new president of the Hero Public Safety Commission was a woman named Mara, exhausted-looking but sharp-eyed. Red Hood, she said, gesturing to a seat. Thank you for coming. Izuku didn't sit. Let's make this quick. You want my services. I have conditions. Hawks told you what they are. He did. Mara pulled out a contract. We've agreed to most of them. Conditional immunity for you and the Rabbit Hero. Operational independence. Target selection autonomy. Most of them? We can't give you completely free reign. You'll have a handler, someone to coordinate with, to ensure you're not going rogue. Who? Me. Hawk said, stepping out from a side room. I volunteered. Figure I'm the only one you might actually trust. Izuku studied him. Hawks was young, pragmatic, and had proven he could think beyond simple hero versus villain dynamics. Fine, but understand I'm not your soldier. I'm a contractor. I take missions that align with my code. Everything else you handle through official channels. Agreed, Mara said, but there's one more condition. From our side. What? You stop the public killings. No more bodies left in the streets. No more executions broadcast on social media. You want to operate in shadows? Stay in the shadows. Izuku was quiet. The public killings had been strategic, fear tactics to control criminal elements. But they'd also made him a symbol, a boogeyman. Maybe it was time to fade back into darkness. Fine. I'll be a ghost. But my rules don't change. Villains who hurt kids, who traffic humans, who push trigger to teenagers, they die. Quietly. We're not asking you to stop killing, Mara said carefully. We're asking you to be discreet. Then we have a deal. The contract was signed, conditional immunity granted. Red Hood officially existed in a legal gray area, not sanctioned, but not hunted. Free to operate as long as he stayed out of sight. It was a compromise, an uncomfortable one. But it was something Izuku could live with, for now. The months that followed were strange. Izuku continued his operations, but differently. No more public displays, no more messages left with corpses. He worked in complete darkness, a whisper in the criminal underworld. The Red Hood became a myth again. Something criminals feared but couldn't prove existed. Hawks fed him targets through encrypted channels. High-value villains. Dangerous quirk users. People the heroes couldn't touch for political or legal reasons. Izuku handled them with brutal efficiency. No survivors, no evidence, just results. Mirko's pregnancy progressed. She stopped active hero work at month 4, officially citing an injury. Unofficially, she moved into Izuku's most secure safe house, a fortified penthouse with defensive measures that would make a military base jealous. Izuku became obsessive about her safety. Every visitor was screened. Every delivery inspected. He installed enough security to monitor a small city. Mirko found it simultaneously annoying and endearing. "You're being paranoid," she said one evening, watching him check the perimeter cameras for the 3rd time. "I'm being careful," Izuku corrected. "You're carrying our child. That makes you the most valuable target in Japan. Every enemy I've made, every villain I've wronged, they all know hurting you hurts me. So we fortify. We prepare. We survive." Mirko pulled him away from the screens. "But you also need to breathe. Our kid deserves a father who's present, not one who's consumed by protecting them. I don't know how to be both." "Then, learn." She placed his hand on her growing stomach. "We have time." But time was running out faster than either of them knew. The threat emerged from an unexpected direction. Not a villain organization, not a hero agency. Something worse. The remaining members of the Meta Liberation Army, scattered and leaderless after Redestro's death, had regrouped. They'd found a new leader, some with resources, intelligence, and a grudge against Red Hood, Dr. Garaki, the same Garaki who'd resurrected Izuku in the Lazarus Pit, the same Garaki who'd barely survived Izuku's escape. He'd been in hiding, rebuilding, planning, and now he was ready. His message reached every villain network in Japan simultaneously. "Red Hood stole his power from me. The Lazarus Pit is my creation. His strength is my gift, and I'm taking it back, along with his life and his woman and his unborn child, because that's what happens to those who defy their creator." Izuku read the message from his safe house. His blood turned to ice. They knew about Mirko. They knew about the baby. His safe house, his fortress, was no longer safe. "We need to move," he said immediately. "Now." Mirko was already grabbing their emergency bags. They'd prepared for this scenario, drilled it dozens of times. In under 3 minutes, they were out the door, moving through underground tunnels Izuku had prepared. But Garaki had prepared too. The tunnel exploded ahead of them. Debris rained down. Figures emerged from the smoke. Liberation soldiers, enhanced with Garaki's experimental drugs. They moved faster than normal humans, hit harder, took more damage. "Behind us," Mirko shouted. More soldiers blocking the rear exit, dozens of them, all converging on their position. Izuku drew his pistols. "Stay behind me." "Like hell." Mirko's legs were already glowing with power. "I'm pregnant, not helpless." They fought back to back. Izuku's enhanced speed and strength tearing through enemies. Mirko's devastating kicks shattering bones despite her pregnant state, but there were too many. For every soldier they dropped, 2 more appeared. A needle jabbed into Izuku's neck. He felt the drug immediately. Not poison, something else, something that made his Lazarus-enhanced cells burn. The green energy that powered him flickered, destabilizing. No, he tore the needle out, but the damage was done. His strength was fading, his speed compromising. The Lazarus Pit's power was being suppressed by Garaki's anti-serum. "Izuku!" Mirko caught him as he stumbled. "What's wrong?" "The drug. It's neutralizing the pit." He looked at her with wide eyes. "I'm losing my edge." "Then we run." But running was impossible. The soldiers closed in, overwhelming them with numbers. Izuku fought desperately, but without his enhanced strength, he was just a skilled human facing dozens of enhanced enemies. They were going to lose. Then the ceiling exploded. All Might descended through the hole, his muscular form radiating power. Behind him came Hawks, Best Jeanist, and Edge Shot, the top heroes arriving at the exact moment when all seemed lost. "Young Midoriya!" All Might shouted, his voice shaking the tunnel. "We received your distress signal." "I didn't send." Izuku started, then realized. Hawks. Hawks must have been monitoring them, ready to intervene if needed. Explanations later. Hawks fired feather blades at the Liberation soldiers. "Rescuing now!" The heroes tore through the enemy forces. All Might's raw power shattered enhanced bodies. Best Jeanist's threads restrained entire groups. Edge-Shot moved too fast to track, disabling soldiers before they could react. Hawks provided aerial support, his feathers finding every weak point. It was over in minutes. Izuku and Mirko were extracted, carried to safety by All Might himself. They emerged in a hero agency safe house, far from the ambush site. Medical staff immediately attended to Mirko, checking the baby. Izuku refused treatment until he knew she was okay. "The baby's fine," the doctor finally said. "Strong heartbeat, like no complications from the stress." Izuku's legs gave out. He sat heavily in a chair, relief flooding through him. They'd almost died. Their child had almost died. And he'd been helpless. All Might sat beside him. The two men who'd once been mentor and student, who'd become something complicated and painful. "You saved us," Izuku said quietly. "Hawks was monitoring your location, had a team on standby. All Might's skeletal form looked tired. I know you don't want my help, don't trust me, but I couldn't let you die again, couldn't fail you twice. Why? Why do you care so much?" "Because you were right." All Might's voice cracked. "Everything you said on that rooftop after All for One died, about me choosing the city over you, about symbols mattering more than people. You were right, and I've been trying to change, to be better." Izuku looked at him, really looked at him, at the guilt etched into every line of his face, at the pain in his sunken eyes. "You can't fix what happened to me. I know, but I can prevent it from happening to others." All Might pulled out a folder. "I've been working with Hawk's Reform faction in the Commission. We're implementing new protocols, priority response to hostage situations, mandatory intervention timers, systems to prevent what happened to you. That won't bring back the boy I was. No. But it might save the next one." All Might placed his hand on Izuku's shoulder. "And maybe someday you'll be able to forgive me. Not for my sake, for yours. So you're not carrying that hatred forever." Izuku didn't respond. He just stared at the floor, processing everything. The near-death experience, All Might's apology, the realization that his crusade had limits, that he couldn't protect everything alone. "I need your help," he finally said. "Garaki knows about Mirko, about Tsubaka, about the baby. He won't stop until we're dead, and I can't do this alone, not with the Lazarus Pit compromised. What do you need?" "Help me kill him. One last time, then I'm done. I take Hawksteel fully. Fade into shadows, become what the Commission wants. But first, I end the man who created me." All Might nodded slowly. "Then let's end him together." The assault on Garaki's lab was coordinated through Hawk's channels. A full task force, All Might, Hawks, Best Jeanist, Edgeshot, and Red Hood, supported by hero agencies and police. This wasn't a vigilante operation anymore. This was an official hero mission, with one unofficial executioner at its center. The lab was hidden beneath an abandoned hospital in the mountains. Multiple levels of defense, enhanced liberation soldiers, prototype Nomus, and at the center, Garaki himself, surrounded by vats of that sickly green liquid, the Lazarus Pit, multiple versions of it, refined and weaponized. Garaki had been mass-producing it, planning to create an army of resurrection-enhanced soldiers, an army that would tear down hero society. "You came," Garaki's voice echoed through the lab speakers. "My prodigal creation returns. Tell me, Red Hood, how does it feel knowing I made you? That without me, you'd still be dead meat in a warehouse?" Izuku's response was cold. "It feels like I'm about to kill my creator. Thanks for the material, Doc, but I'm returning the gift." He moved through the lab like death incarnate. The heroes handled the soldiers and Nomus. Izuku headed straight for Garaki. No deviation. No hesitation. Every step purposeful. He found the doctor in the central chamber, standing before a massive Lazarus Pit, the largest one yet, big enough to revive a dozen people simultaneously. "My masterwork," Garaki said, gesturing proudly. "With this, I can resurrect anyone, build an army of the dead, each one enhanced like you, each one loyal to me." "Loyal." Izuku drew his pistols. "I was never loyal to you, because you were a prototype, a first attempt, but I've perfected the process now. No more madness, no more free will, just obedient soldiers who do exactly what I command. You're insane." I'm a scientist." Garaki pulled a remote from his coat. "And my latest experiment is about to begin. You see, I've been monitoring your vitals since you escaped. I know the anti-serum is still in your system. In fact, you're weaker, slower, more human." He pressed the button, the vat behind him began to open, fluid drained, and something emerged, something massive, something that shouldn't exist. It was a Nomu, but not like any Izuku had seen before. This one had his face, his green hair with the white streak, his scars. It was a clone, grown in the Lazarus Pit, enhanced with multiple quirks, a perfect copy of Red Hood, but monstrous. "Meet Red Nomu," Garaki said, cackling. "My attempt to recreate you, to improve upon you. Same enhanced strength, same Lazarus power, but with added quirks. Regeneration, shock absorption, pain nullification. It's everything you are, but better. The red Nomu lunged. Izuku barely dodged. The creature moved with his speed, his precision. It fought like him because it was him. Every technique he'd developed, every tactic he'd mastered, the Nomu knew them too. They clashed, fist against fist, power against power. The lab shook with their impacts. Izuku fired his pistols point blank. The bullets punched through the Nomu's flesh, but it barely slowed down. Regeneration closed the wounds instantly. "You can't win," Garaki shouted. "It's you at your best, you at peak power, and you're compromised." Izuku gritted his teeth. Garaki was right. The anti-serum had reduced his Lazarus enhancements. He was fighting at maybe 70% capacity. The Nomu was at 100% plus multiple quirks. He was losing. The Nomu's fist connected with his ribs. Bones cracked. He flew backward, crashing into lab equipment. Blood filled his mouth. The Nomu advanced, relentless, ready to finish him. Then All Might arrived. Texas Smash. The impact was nuclear. All Might's full power focused on the red Nomu's head. The creature's entire upper body exploded. Blood and tissue rained down. But even that wasn't enough. Regeneration started immediately, the Nomu's body knitting back together. "Persistent bastard," Hawks said, landing beside them. His feathers formed dozens of blades. "Any ideas?" "One," Izuku said, forcing himself to stand. He looked at the massive Lazarus pit. "We use the source against it." He ran toward the vat. The Nomu, partially regenerated, gave chase. Izuku led it right to the pit's edge, then dove aside at the last second. The Nomu couldn't stop its momentum. It crashed into the Lazarus liquid, but instead of empowering it, something went wrong. The Nomu started dissolving. Its regeneration quirk fought against the pit's energy, creating a feedback loop. Flesh bubbled, bones melted. The creature screamed, a horrible, agonized sound as it liquefied. "No!" Garaki rushed toward the vat. "My creation. My masterpiece." Izuku caught him. "Your masterpiece is dead, just like you're about to be." He pulled out his pistol and placed it against Garaki's temple. "Wait," the doctor pleaded. "I can help you. Restore your full power. Remove the anti-serum. Make you stronger than ever." "I don't want to be stronger." Izuku's finger tightened on the trigger. "I want to be done. Done with your experiments. Done with the Lazarus pit. Done with being your creation. But you are my creation. Without me. I'm not yours," Izuku interrupted. "I'm Izuku Midoriya. I'm Red Hood. I'm a father-to-be. I'm someone who survived your torture and became something you never intended. Something better." He pulled the trigger. Garaki's body collapsed, dead before it hit the ground. Izuku stood there, gun still smoking, staring at the corpse of the man who'd brought him back to life. He felt nothing. No satisfaction. No rage. Just exhaustion. "Young Midoriya," All Might said softly. "Are you all right? I don't know." Izuku holstered his pistol. "But I will be." They destroyed the lab, burned every sample of Lazarus liquid, eliminated every piece of research. Garaki's work died with him, ensuring no one else would suffer resurrection's price. As they evacuated, Izuku looked back one last time at the burning facility. At the end of the Lazarus pit's legacy, he'd been reborn in green fire. Now that fire was being extinguished. Good. Some things should stay dead. The Hero Commission kept their word. Conditional immunity, operational independence. Red Hood officially became a shadow, a weapon the government pretended didn't exist while using extensively. Izuku handled the cases heroes couldn't. The villains protected by politics, the criminals with government connections, the threats that required permanent solutions. He worked alone mostly, sometimes with Hawks coordinating, occasionally with Shigaraki providing intelligence from the villain underground. It was dirty work, but someone had to do it. Mirko gave birth in month 8. Complications required an emergency C-section. Izuku paced outside the operating room, driving Hawks crazy with his nervous energy. "She's strong," Hawks said, trying to reassure him. "She's the rabbit hero. She's survived way worse than childbirth." "This is different," Izuku replied. "This isn't a fight she can win with strength. This is biology. Random chance, and if something goes wrong, it won't." But Izuku couldn't shake the fear. He'd lost so much, had so much taken from him. The thought of losing Mirko, of their child not surviving, was unbearable. The doctor emerged after 3 hours. "Mr. Midoriya, you have a healthy daughter." Izuku's world shifted. A daughter. He rushed into the recovery room. Mirko lay in bed, exhausted but smiling, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. She looked up when he entered, tears streaming down her face. "Come meet your daughter," she said softly. Izuku approached slowly, almost reverently. He looked down at the baby in Mirko's arms. She had Mirko's skin tone, his green eyes, and a small tuft of white hair already visible on her head. A white streak, just like his. "She's beautiful," he whispered. "She's ours." Mirko adjusted the baby and handed her to Izuku. "Want to hold her?" He took his daughter with shaking hands. She was so small, so fragile, so perfect. She opened her eyes and looked at him with those green irises, and something inside Izuku's chest shattered and reformed. All the darkness, all the violence, all the death he'd caused and experienced, it all suddenly had meaning, purpose. This tiny life, this innocent soul, was his to protect, his to raise, his to ensure never suffered like he had. "Hey there," he said to his daughter. "I'm your dad, and I promise you," his voice cracked, "I promise you'll never know the pain I knew. You'll never be helpless, never be abandoned. I'll burn the entire world to ash before I let anyone hurt you." The baby made a small sound, almost like she understood. Mirko laughed weakly. "That's dark even for you." "Too dark? Perfect." She reached out and touched his hand. "She needs a name." They'd discussed names for months, traditional options, hero-inspired names. But now, holding his daughter, only one felt right. "Eri," Izuku said. Mirko's eyes widened. "After the girl you saved? After the first person I protected as Red Hood, after someone who survived hell and came out stronger." He looked at Mirko. "If that's okay?" "It's perfect," she smiled through tears. "Eri Midoriya, our little survivor." Eri made another small sound as if approving of her name. They stayed like that for hours, new parents with their newborn daughter. Outside, the world continued its chaos. Heroes fought villains. The Commission covered up secrets. Society balanced precariously between order and collapse. But in that hospital room, 3 people found something rare and precious: peace. 5 years passed. Izuku Midoriya, the Red Hood, sat in his safe house on a quiet afternoon. The penthouse had been transformed, no longer a fortress of weapons and surveillance, but a home. Children's toys scattered the floor. Family photos lined the walls. The smell of dinner cooking filled the air. He was different now, too. Still dangerous. Still lethal when necessary, but softer around the edges. The constant rage that had driven him had mellowed into something more controlled. He killed less frequently, solved problems with strategy instead of violence when possible. But when violence was necessary, he didn't hesitate. His 5-year-old daughter played nearby. Eri Midoriya had her mother's athletic build and her father's analytical mind. The white streak in her hair had remained, growing more pronounced as she aged. She played with hero action figures, making them fight epic battles. "Daddy!" she called out. "Come play with me." Izuku smiled and joined her on the floor. "What are we playing? Heroes and villains. You be the villain." "Why do I have to be the villain?" "Because you're better at it." Eri giggled, completely innocent to the irony of her words. Mirko entered from the kitchen, her hero costume replaced by casual clothes. She'd officially retired from active hero work after Eri's birth, taking an instructor position at UA. She still had that predatory grace, that dangerous edge, but channeled it into training the next generation. "Dinner's ready," she announced. They ate together as a family. Normal. Domestic. Strange for people who'd built their relationship on violence and adrenaline, but they made it work. After dinner, Izuku tucked Eri into bed. She clutched her favorite stuffed rabbit, a gift from Mirko, and looked up at him with those green eyes so much like his own. "Daddy?" she asked. "Are you a hero?" Izuku paused. He'd known this question would come eventually, had prepared for it. But now, facing his daughter's innocent curiosity, the prepared answer felt insufficient. "No, sweetheart," he said honestly. "I'm not a hero." "Then what are you?" He thought about everything he'd been. The quirkless kid who wanted to save everyone, the tortured victim left to die, the resurrected weapon born from green fire, the brutal vigilante who killed without mercy, the partner to a fierce warrior, the father to a beautiful daughter. "I'm something better," he finally said, brushing hair from her forehead. "I'm someone who makes sure little kids like you never have to be scared. Like a guardian?" "Exactly like a guardian." He kissed her forehead. "The world has heroes, bright, shining symbols who inspire people. But sometimes those heroes can't handle the really bad stuff, the monsters that hide in shadows. That's where I come in. Do you fight the monsters? Every day. But I do it so you don't have to, so you can grow up safe, happy, free to be whoever you want to be. Eri hugged her stuffed rabbit tighter. I want to be like you when I grow up. No, you don't, Izuku said gently. You want to be better than me, stronger, kinder, braver. You want to be the person I couldn't be. Why couldn't you be that person? Because bad things happened to me, things that changed me, made me hard, angry. He looked at his hands, hands that had killed so many. But those bad things led me to your mother and to you. So maybe they were worth it. Does it still hurt? The bad things? Izuku smiled sadly. Every day. But you know what helps? What? You, your mother, this life we've built. When I look at you, I remember why I fight, why I became what I am. I'm not protecting some abstract idea of society. I'm protecting you. And that makes every dark thing I've done worthwhile. Eri reached up and touched the white streak in his hair. We match. We do. He took her small hand in his scarred one. This mark means we survived something difficult. We died and came back different. But we came back, and that's what matters. I didn't die, though. No. But you were born into this complicated world, with complicated parents, and you survive every day with such joy and love that you remind me what I'm fighting for. He kissed her hand. You're my reason, Eri. You and your mother. You're why I can't stop. Why I won't stop. Because the day I stop protecting you is the day I stop breathing. Eri yawned, exhaustion finally catching up to her excitement. Will you tell me a story? What kind of story? The one about the boy who wanted to be a hero. Izuku's throat tightened. She always asked for this story. The sanitized version of his own past. The tale of a quirkless kid who never gave up, who trained with the greatest hero, who faced terrible odds and emerged victorious. He never told her the true version. The torture, the death, the resurrection in green fire, the killing, the moral compromises. She was too young for that darkness. Maybe she'd always be too young for it. And that was fine. Once upon a time, he began, his voice soft, there was a boy who had no powers in a world full of powerful people. Everyone told him he couldn't be a hero, but he didn't listen. He trained, he studied, he prepared, and when the time came, he proved everyone wrong. How? Eri asked, her eyes already drooping. By being willing to do what others wouldn't, by making the hard choices, by sacrificing himself so others could live. Izuku pulled her blanket up. The boy learned that being a hero wasn't about powers or popularity. It was about protecting people, all people, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. Did he save everyone? He tried, and for the people he could save, he made their world better, safer. That's all anyone can do. Eri's eyes closed. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, little one. He stayed until her breathing evened out, watching her sleep. So innocent, so pure, so different from the darkness he'd waded through. He would keep her that way, whatever it cost. Mirko found him later on the penthouse's balcony, looking out over the city. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, resting her chin on his shoulder. Rough day? She asked. No, good day. Izuku turned to face her. Great day, actually. Gotta be a dad instead of a killer. That's always a win. Hawks sent a message. New target, high-level villain. Commission wants him gone quietly. Izuku sighed. When? Tonight. But I told Hawks you're busy. He understands. I should go. It's what they pay me for. They pay you to be available, not on call every second. Mirko pulled him close. You're a father now. A husband. That comes first. The villain will still be there tomorrow. And if people die because I waited, then that's on the villain, not you. Her voice was firm. You can't save everyone, Izuku. You can't carry the entire world on your shoulders. You tried that once. It broke you. I don't feel broken anymore. That's because you learned to share the weight. She kissed him. You're not alone. Not anymore. So stop acting like you have to handle everything yourself. Izuku relaxed into her embrace. When did you get so wise? Always was. You were just too busy being angsty to notice. He laughed. Actually laughed. A sound that had been rare for so long but came easier now. With her. With Eri. With this life they'd carved out of blood and darkness. The news played on a screen inside. Headlines about crime rates dropping, about villain organizations crumbling, about a mysterious force operating in the shadows, eliminating threats before they could fully form. They never mentioned Red Hood by name, never showed his face, never acknowledged his existence officially, but everyone knew. The criminals knew. They whispered warnings to each other. Stay away from kids. Don't push trigger to students. Don't traffic humans. Because if you break those rules, the Red Hood comes. And when he comes, you don't survive. The heroes knew. They pretended not to, but they accepted his results, appreciated his effectiveness even if they couldn't publicly condone his methods. Hawks coordinated with him. All Might provided intelligence. Even former enemies like Best Jeanist had grudgingly admitted that some threats required permanent solutions. The public knew, in a vague, uncertain way. They saw the effects without understanding the cause. They noticed that certain types of crime had nearly disappeared, that children were safer, that the worst elements of villain society had been systematically eradicated. They didn't know who was responsible. Didn't know his name or face or history, and that was fine. Izuku didn't need recognition, didn't need praise, didn't need the world to know that Izuku Midoriya, the boy who died in a warehouse, had become something both terrible and necessary. He just needed to keep his family safe. Everything else was secondary. "We should get married," Mirko said suddenly. Izuku pulled back to look at her. "What? Married. Legally. Officially." She smiled. "We have a daughter, a life together. We might as well make it official. I'm a wanted vigilante. You're a retired hero with connections to the commission. A marriage certificate would link us permanently in government databases. We're already linked. Everyone who matters knows we're together." She took his hand. "I want to marry you. Not because we have to, because I want to, because you're mine and I'm yours, and I want that recognized." Izuku stared at her, at this fierce, beautiful, dangerous woman who'd chosen him, who'd stood by him through everything, who'd given him a daughter and a reason to keep living. "Okay," he said. "Okay? Let's get married." Mirko whooped and kissed him hard. "About damn time!" They married quietly. No big ceremony, no media coverage, just a small gathering in a private location. Hawks officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for this. All Might attended, tears streaming down his skeletal face the entire time. Shigaraki showed up uninvited, but was allowed to stay in the back, a ghost observing from the shadows. Eri was the flower girl. She took her duties very seriously, scattering petals with intense concentration. When Izuku and Mirko exchanged vows, neither used traditional words, they'd written their own. "I promise to fight beside you," Mirko said, "to protect what we've built, to raise our daughter to be strong and kind and free, to love you even when you're being difficult, to kick your ass when you need it, to be your partner in everything." "I promise to come home," Izuku replied. "Every night, no matter how dark it gets. I promise to be the father our daughter deserves, to protect you both with everything I am, to choose you over the mission, over the work, over everything. You're my reason. You're why I survived. And I'll spend every day proving that you made the right choice in choosing me." They kissed. Eri cheered. The small gathering applauded. It wasn't a traditional wedding, but nothing about their relationship had ever been traditional. And that was perfect. The years continued. Eri grew. Started showing signs of a quirk. Something that let her rewind small injuries on herself and others. A power that could heal. That could undo damage. Izuku saw the irony immediately. His daughter, born from parents defined by violence, had a power dedicated to reversing harm. Maybe that meant something. Maybe it meant nothing. Either way, they trained her carefully, taught her control, made sure she understood that power came with responsibility. That strength should protect, not dominate. She listened, learned, grew into a remarkable young girl. Izuku continued his shadow work. The bodies piled up over the years, though at a slower rate. He'd become more surgical, more precise, eliminating true threats while giving lesser criminals chances to reform. His code had evolved, incorporating lessons from both his brutal past and his hopeful present. The Hero Commission changed leadership twice. Both times, the new leaders chose to maintain the arrangement with Red Hood. He was simply too effective to abandon. Too useful for handling problems the public couldn't know about. All Might finally retired fully, his body unable to handle even minimal hero work. He spent his final years teaching at UA, passing on lessons learned from decades of experience and failure. He and Izuku achieved something like reconciliation. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. Acceptance of what had happened and what couldn't be changed. You did good. Young Midoriya, All Might said during one of their occasional meetings. Better than I ever did. You saved more people, made harder choices, shouldered burdens I couldn't. I became a killer, Izuku replied. That's not better. Maybe not, but it was necessary, and you kept your humanity despite it. That's the real achievement. They never became mentor and student again. That relationship was dead, killed in a warehouse, and never resurrected. But they became something else. Two men who'd been broken by a system and tried in their own ways to fix it. It was enough. Shigaraki established an unusual equilibrium with hero society. He didn't reform, didn't become a hero. But he stopped the indiscriminate destruction, created a network of individuals who operated in gray spaces, handling problems through methods heroes couldn't use, but villains used too brutally. He and Izuku met occasionally, discussed threats, coordinated on targets, two weapons learning to think for themselves. We're not heroes, Shigaraki said during one meeting. We're not villains either, Izuku replied. Then what are we? Necessary evils, doing the work nobody else will, making the hard choices, being the monsters so others don't have to be. You make it sound noble. It's not noble, it's just necessary. They existed in that space, between light and dark, between law and chaos, between the world that was and the world that needed to be. It was uncomfortable, complicated, imperfect, but it worked. Until the day everything changed. Eri was 10 years old when she asked her father the question that had been building for years. Daddy, she said, looking up from her homework. Why do people call you Red Hood? Izuku froze. He'd known this conversation was coming, had prepared for it. But now that it was here, the words felt inadequate. Because that's the name I chose, he said carefully. But why that name? What does it mean? Mirko entered the room, sensing the tension. She sat beside Eri, taking her daughter's hand. Your father has done things, she said gently. Hard things. Things that people don't understand. The name Red Hood represents that. It's who he had to become to protect people. To protect people from what? From monsters, Izuku said. Real monsters. People who hurt children, who destroy families, who break lives for profit or pleasure. Eri looked at him with those green eyes. And you stop them? I stopped them permanently. The truth hung in the air. Eri was smart. She could read between the lines, could understand what permanently meant. You kill them, she said. Not a question, a statement. Yes. Because they're bad people? Because they're dangerous people who won't stop otherwise. Because they've done terrible things and will keep doing them unless someone stops them. Izuku knelt in front of his daughter. I'm not a good person, Eri. I've done bad things for what I believe are good reasons. The world isn't black and white. It's complicated and messy, and sometimes the only way to protect innocent people is to eliminate guilty ones. Tears formed in Eri's eyes. Does that make you bad? I don't know. Maybe. Izuku wiped her tears. But I know this. Every person I've stopped, every threat I've eliminated is one less monster who could hurt you, could hurt your mother, could hurt children like the girl you were named after, and I'll keep doing it until my dying breath. Because you deserve a world where you can grow up without fear. But what if people find out? What if they try to arrest you? What if they take you away from us? They won't. Mirko joined them, wrapping her arms around both of them. Because your father is careful, because he has protection, because the people who matter know he's necessary. But is it right? Eri asked. Is it right to kill people even if they're bad? Izuku thought about that question. The same question he'd asked himself thousands of times. The question that had no satisfying answer. I don't know if it's right, he admitted, but I know it's necessary. The world has heroes who save people with smiles and hope. That's beautiful, important, necessary, but the world also needs people willing to get their hands dirty, to do the ugly work, to make the choices heroes can't make. And that's you? That's me. I'm not a hero. I'm a guardian, someone who operates in shadows so you can live in the light. It's not perfect. It's not noble, but it's what the world needs from me. Eri hugged him fiercely. I don't care what you've done. You're my daddy, and you've always protected me. That's what matters. Izuku held his daughter, this miracle he didn't deserve. I love you, little one. I love you too, Daddy. Even if you're not a hero, even if you're a guardian in the shadows, you're still my hero. That night, after Eri was asleep, Izuku stood on the balcony and looked out at the city. His city. the one he'd protected for over a decade now, the one that didn't know his name but felt his presence. Mirko joined him, as she always did. They stood in comfortable silence, watching lights twinkle in the darkness. "She'll understand someday," Mirko said. "Really understand. And she'll either accept what you are or reject it. There's no middle ground with kids. I know. And if she rejects it, if she rejects me, I'll accept that. She deserves the freedom to judge her father honestly. She won't reject you. She's too much like us, too aware of how complicated the world is. Maybe that's what scares me. I don't want her to inherit my darkness. She won't. She'll inherit your strength, your determination, your willingness to protect others, but she'll do it her way. As a hero, if that's what she chooses. As something else, if not." Mirko took his hand. "We've given her options, freedom, safety. That's more than either of us had." "True." Izuku pulled her close. "Thank you for everything, for choosing me, for giving me a life worth living, for loving me despite what I am. I love you because of what you are, not despite it." She kissed him. "You're the most complicated, frustrating, dangerous man I've ever known, and you're mine." They stood there, two warriors who'd found peace in each other. Two people who'd killed and fought and bled, but also loved and protected and built something beautiful from the ashes of their broken pasts. The city continued below them. Heroes patrolled, villains plotted, society balanced precariously between order and chaos. And in the shadows between, Red Hood watched, ready to intervene, ready to protect, ready to eliminate whatever threats emerged, because that's what Guardians did. They watched. They waited. And when monsters appeared, they became greater monsters to stop them. It wasn't heroic, wasn't noble, wasn't even particularly good, but it was necessary. And Izuku Midoriya, the boy who died in a warehouse and was reborn in green fire, had learned that sometimes necessary was the best anyone could hope for. The world didn't need more symbols. It didn't need more perfect heroes or dramatic villains. It needed people willing to operate in the gray spaces, to make hard choices, to protect the innocent by eliminating the guilty. The world needed guardians, and Izuku would be that guardian until his dying breath. Again, because he'd already died once, came back wrong, came back dangerous, came back as something this world created by failing him. But he'd also came back as a father, a husband, a protector. And that made everything, all the blood, all the death, all the moral compromises, worthwhile. He'd died once, been reborn in green fire, and emerged as something new, something necessary, something this world needed, whether it admitted it or not. Red Hood, the ghost in the shadows, the guardian in the darkness, the man who'd lost everything and rebuilt himself into a weapon that protected instead of destroyed. And he would keep protecting, keep fighting, keep eliminating threats until the day he died. Again. And if there was a third resurrection after that, another Lazarus pit, another chance to come back, he'd do it all over again. Because Eri deserved a world where she could grow up safely, where she could become a hero if she wanted, or something else entirely, where she had choices he'd never had. And Izuku would burn 1,000 times over to ensure she had those choices. That was what Guardians did. They sacrificed. They burned. They damned themselves so others could live in the light. It wasn't heroic. It wasn't villainy. It was just necessary. And Izuku Midoriya, the Red Hood, the guardian in shadows, the father and husband and killer, had made peace with that necessity. He looked down at his hands, scarred, bloodstained in ways that would never wash clean. Hands that had killed hundreds. Hands that had also held his daughter when she was born, held his wife when she needed comfort. Held weapons and tools and hope in equal measure. These hands had destroyed and created, killed and protected, ended lives and saved them. They were complicated hands, messy hands. Imperfect hands, but they were his hands. And he'd use them to protect what mattered until they couldn't hold weapons anymore, until his final breath, until death came for him again, and maybe even after that. Because some people were born heroes, some people chose heroism, and some people became guardians because the world needed them more than it needed another symbol. Izuku Midoriya had been all three, the hero he wanted to be, the villain circumstances made him, and finally, the guardian he chose to become. It was enough. It had to be enough because there was no going back, no undoing the past, no washing away the blood. There was only forward, only tomorrow, only the next threat to eliminate, the next innocent to protect, the next monster to become so others didn't have to. That was the price of resurrection. That was the cost of surviving. That was what it meant to die and come back wrong, but necessary. Red Hood stood on that balcony, his city spread before him, his family safe behind him, his purpose clear in his mind, and he smiled. Not a hero's smile, not a villain's grin, a guardian's quiet satisfaction. Because tonight, his daughter slept safely, his wife rested peacefully, his city remained protected. Tomorrow would bring new threats, new battles, new moral compromises, but tomorrow was tomorrow. Tonight he was just a man who died once, been reborn in fire, and emerged as something this world desperately needed, a guardian in the shadows, forever marked by death and rebirth, forever protecting a world that feared him, forever necessary, forever Red Hood. And that was enough. End.
The Chronos Legend roster. Huge respect to the legends fueling this journey. Your support is the engine behind everything we do. Whether you're on the front lines or reaching for the stars, you make this possible. Pro Heroes, the elite front line, stepping up and setting the pace for the whole community. Rathakit, Dylan the Proud, D.I., Fire 05. Symbol of peace, the pillars of the community, the titans who keep our foundation solid and the hype alive. Yam, Christian Mullins, Bully Maguire Shadow, Amuri B, Kenneth Ponteris, Neostar Productions, Asael Cardenas, Shaquan Simmons, Thunder, Elijah Saunders, Peter Hamilton, Freddie Rose, Omega, Toxic Rune, Alexander Thompson, Remorsefuls, Black Vein, Joshua Hedrington, Aaron Abercrombie, Drift SKETR, Corey Tokars, Yan, Zero Hope 3656, Devin Black, Crow, Roberto Ramos de Cristina, Dasher Games, Ray von Crimson River, Dante Alistar, Adam Yonkers, Blood Saints, Donna Cafe, Zeph, Howie 60, Ignacio, Albert. Hope of the universe, the ultimate guardians, celestial tier supporters whose impact shines across the galaxy. Coldbane 4, The Maniac 563, Sean Brooks, Kashawn, Debbie Vo, Gvizzlns 21, LS Morningstar, Marl, Spintown, Ike Shoot X50, Greg Green, James, Quan Yen Thompson, Juan, Zeno KJ. Red Hood just said fuck your hero society and dropped the coldest finale in fan fiction history. If this story hit different, smash that subscribe button before I reload. Drop a comment telling me who's next to get the Red Hood treatment. Peace.